Chapter 790. After playing all day yesterday, Fong Bei and Kiki were still sleeping at 9 o'clock in the morning. Poplar Fruit got up early to chat with Alan. "Leon, how do you know so much about Western food?" Alan asked in surprise. He knew that Linda couldn't make such a sumptuous breakfast. Usually, other than eating wheat and milk, they would eat fried eggs and bread. It had been more than 10 years, and it hadn't changed. On the table, there were handmade sandwiches. The bread was very thin, and the fragrant bacon was freshly fried. The triangular poached eggs were fried in a triangular shape. The tomato slices were cut into rings, and the fresh and tender lettuce were all very appetizing. Poplar Fruit was worried that the children might not want to eat the sandwiches, so he also made milk cheesecake, apple toast, and Kiki's favorite fruit salad. "Originally, I only knew how to make Chinese dishes." Poplar Fruit laughed. "However, after a month in Bali, I learned a thing or two from the chef in Ardel, especially the fruit salad, which looks very simple, but actually requires a lot of thought. I chose the fruits according to Kiki's taste: bananas, kiwis, watermelons, and apples. I don't know if you like them. I think Linda should learn from you." Alan laughed. "I'm tired of eating bread every day." "Alan." Linda saw that Alan had exposed her shortcomings, so she slapped him shyly. However, after a while, the two of them hugged and kissed again, seeing the two children eating their favorite breakfast calmly, as if they had turned a blind eye to their parents' behavior. Poplar Fruit shook his head and sighed in his heart. Foreigners are really open-minded about these things. They don't mind having their children around at all. Take Fong Bei, for example. If Kiki was around, she would at most hug Poplar Fruit. How could she dare to do something more daring? "I'll go and wake them up." Poplar Fruit couldn't stand it anymore. He smiled and said. Back in the room, Poplar Fruit drew the curtains, bent down, and gently patted Fong Bei's butt. He said with a smile, "Baby, wake up. The sun is shining on your butt." In fact, it was enough to sleep until 9:30. As soon as Poplar Fruit drew the curtains and the sunlight shone in, Fong Bei had already woken up. She just stayed in bed until Poplar Fruit bent down. She lazily opened her eyes, raised her arms, and stretched out her body's neck. Because they were in someone else's house, Poplar Fruit smiled and pulled Fong Bei's waist to cover her smooth belly with her clothes. He pinched Fong Bei's nose, then kissed her forehead and said, "Get up quickly. It seems that you just received a text message on your phone. See if someone is looking for you." After that, Poplar Fruit got up to wake Kiki up. The little girl was also half asleep. Being held in her father's arms, she couldn't open her eyes and had to rub them hard. Looking back, Poplar Fruit saw Fong Bei's butt sticking out like an earthworm lying on the bed and looking at her phone. She must have just struggled to take the phone from the bedside table. "Are you exposing your butt to me to be spanked?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Fong Bei didn't respond, but Kiki, who was still in a daze, reacted. She subconsciously covered her little butt and begged with a crying voice, "Papa, don't hit Kiki." "I didn't hit you. Papa wasn't talking about you." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Uncle. Fong Bei's voice trembled a little. She maintained that position and called out. "Well, what's the matter?" Poplar Fruit asked. Fong Bei suddenly turned around and almost fell on the bed. She didn't care so much. With an excited look, she kept waving at Poplar Fruit and shouted, come here and help me see. Did I win the award? Did I?" Hearing this, Poplar Fruit also became excited. He put Kiki on the side of the bed, then quickly climbed to Fong Bei's side and asked, "Where is it? You got the results so soon? Is it because of the message?" "They sent me an email, but I can't understand it," Fong Bei said with a little excitement. "But I heard from the senior brothers and sisters that as long as you receive the email, you can basically be sure that you've won the award. Don't worry, I'll translate it for you." Poplar Fruit pointed at the email message on the phone and read it. "Congratulations to Bei's side. Fong Bei, Shun Hong, and Wang Di. Your team of 3 won the Outstanding Award." Yangwa blabbered on and on until she finally got to the awards. He saw that there was no point in reading the rest, so he didn't continue. Poplar Fruit asked in confusion, "Outstanding Award? What kind of award is the Outstanding Award?" Fong Bei was also confused, What outstanding award? I've never heard of an outstanding award. This is what it says here, outstanding winner. Poplar fruit read. Fong Bei couldn't believe her ears. She grabbed Poplar Fruit's hand and asked, "Really? This outstanding award is the special award, the highest award." However, Fong Bei didn't have the confidence to think that she would win such a big award. She asked in surprise, "Uncle, did you read it wrong? There are less than 20 teams in the special award." "Let me check." Poplar Fruit picked up his phone and opened the browser to search, completely ignoring his daughter who was at the foot of the bed. Kiki had already burrowed under the blanket, bulging like a little groundhog. "It's true," Poplar Fruit said to Fong Bei in surprise. "Baby, you won the special award." "Really?" Fong Bei covered her face. She was so excited that tears were about to fall. She cried and threw herself into Poplar Fruit's arms, sobbing. Poplar Fruit patted her back gently with a smile. He didn't say anything to comfort her. At this time, it was time to let Fong Bei cry. Poplar Fruit understood this feeling. In fact, Fong Bei said that Poplar Fruit had worked hard in Bali, but when did she have the time to relax? For the whole summer vacation, Fong Bei had been training with the team. While the others were on vacation, she still couldn't be idle. It was the same after school started. This tense pace of preparation continued until the eve of the competition. She had suffered a lot for this competition. Poplar Fruit actually saw it in his heart. At this time, Alan and his wife heard the commotion and came over. Poplar Fruit smiled and said to them, "It's okay. I'm happy. She won the highest award in the university mathematical modeling competition. I knew she could do it." Alan gave a thumbs up and smiled. "Leon, sometimes we have to admit that there are really geniuses in this world." Poplar Fruit smiled and nodded. He lifted the blanket and fished out Kiki, who was sleeping under it. This little girl is not afraid of being bored. Chapter 791. Alan's family still wanted to hold a celebration for Fong Bei. However, Poplar Fruit and the rest had originally planned to go back today. Now that there was news of the award, Fong Bei could not hold back her joy, so Poplar Fruit rejected Alan. After breakfast, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei excitedly boarded the plane back to San Francisco. Speaking of which, Poplar Fruit finally understood that flying in the United States was still very cheap. It was not the peak season recently, so these kinds of short-distance flights were discounted. Poplar Fruit and the rest were only $60 per person, so it was much cheaper than expensive taxis. More importantly, it was fast. If they took a bus or a taxi, it would probably take more than 7 hours to go from Irwin to San Francisco, but the plane returned in less than an hour. Along the way, Fong Bei was so excited that she could not sit still. She took out her phone for a while, then put it back again. She wanted to share her joy with her parents, but she was worried that something would go wrong and she would be happy for nothing. Poplar Fruit saw her fidgeting on the plane, so he found out after asking her, "Why don't you call Professor Zhang and ask him? He is the leader, so he knows this the best." Poplar Fruit laughed. The reason why he asked Professor Zhang was because the other team members' phones did not have global connectivity. Usually, when they called home, they would need to borrow their teachers' phones. Then, most of them directly contacted their families through online video. Unlike Fong Bei, Poplar Fruit charged a few thousand yuan in her phone, so she could call as much as she wanted. "I don't have Professor Zhang's phone number." Fong Bei blinked and said. Poplar Fruit found out that Professor Zhang had given them his phone number when he held a meeting with the team leaders. However, Fong Bei's team leader, Wang Di, was a little careless and did not tell them when he came back. Perhaps he felt that it was useless. Looking at each other, Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, "If you don't, why would I? Why don't I call back and ask my teacher?" Poplar Fruit took out his phone and asked, "Or I could call the hotel and ask them to transfer you to Professor Zhang. I still remember the hotel's phone number." "No need." Fong Bei laughed. "There's no need to make a big fuss. Anyway, we'll be back at the hotel in a while. Why don't we just ask Professor Zhang directly?" Poplar Fruit pinched Fong Bei's nose intimately and smiled. "I'm just worried that you'll be anxious. Actually, I don't think that email is wrong. How could someone who wants to prank you be able to forge such a high-quality notice?" You should know that your boyfriend's eyes are not to be trifled with. Actually, Fong Beibei had no confidence in herself. She felt that she had won the grand prize in her first competition. This was too dreamy to be real. However, hearing Poplar Fruit's dry humor, Fong Beibei still felt very happy. Fong Beibei giggled. She hugged Poplar Fruit's arm tightly and found a comfortable position to lean her head on. Poplar Fruit's embrace was already occupied by Kiki. The little girl was hugging her Barbie doll and fantasizing about something. Of course, everything was developing in a good direction. When they returned to the hotel, Poplar Fruit and the others saw that the Higashiyama University's teachers and students were all jubilant. Everyone had gathered in the restaurant on the second floor and were excitedly talking about the excellent results that Higashiyama University had obtained this time. It was really good. This time, all 8 teams from Higashiyama University won awards. 1 special prize, 3 first prize, 2 second prize, 1 third prize, and 1 excellence award. The list of winners was so luxurious that it even set the best record for a domestic university. We really won the award. Shen Hong teared up as she held Fong Beibei's hand and excitedly confirmed with her. Wang Di's eyes were also red. Both of them were in their 4th year this year. It could be said that this was the last modeling competition they had participated in, and in their last time, they actually held the highest honor in this competition. How could they not cry with joy? Especially Wang Di. He really proved himself this time. In the past, there were people who said that he was riding on the coattails of 2 powerful seniors. However, this year, no one could erase his contribution. This was because in this team, the little demoness Fong Beibei was participating in the competition for the first time this year. Shen Hong was also participating for the first time. Furthermore, his strength was below average among everyone. He was the oldest and had the best results. Students. Professor Zhang was also very happy. In the past, he rarely drank, but just now he drank 2 glasses of beer. He even picked up his glass and stood up unsteadily. He smiled and said, "I know that you are all very happy because we obtained very, very good results. However, I believe that everyone understands that this year we were able to obtain such a good result unexpectedly. It can't be done without the help of one person. Without him taking the time to organize the secret books, without him taking time out of his busy schedule to give us a thesis writing tutorial, we wouldn't be able to achieve today's glory," Professor Zhang said very passionately. He even waved his hand and said, "Today he is also here." Poplar Fruit was just picking up some food for Kiki. When he saw everyone's eyes focused on him, he blushed and waved his hand. However, Professor Zhang did not intend to let him go. He smiled and said, "So today, let's all toast him, okay?" Suddenly, a large number of people stood up. Even Fong Beibei had a smile in her eyes. She picked up a drink and stood up. Poplar Fruit naturally could not sit still. Although it was a little awkward to stand up with Kiki in his arms, he still dragged his chair and stood up. Chi-Chi's hand trembled after being tossed around by him, and the pumpkin pie she had just grabbed fell into the bowl with a plop. Kiki quickly reached out to grab it, but she was suddenly carried up by her father. Her small hands and feet fluttered, and she could not reach it no matter how hard she tried. Poplar Fruit picked up his teacup. Before he could say anything, more than 20 teachers and students bowed to him in unison and said, "Senior Poplar Fruit, thank you. Don't be like that," Poplar Fruit said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "It's just a small matter. If you want to say thank you, I have to thank you for taking care of Beibei during this period." "Haha, Poplar Fruit, you don't have to be so humble." Professor Zhang smiled and said, "Teacher Sure and I have discussed it. The fact that we can get such good results has nothing to do with our overall strength. It's mainly because of you. It's you who narrowed the gap between us and the American students in terms of language. That's why we have a fair chance to compete with them. Senior, just say yes." A bold girl laughed and said, "Beibei is part of our Higashiyama University's team. You are now our son-in-law. In the future, you have to support us more." Everyone laughed. Fong Beibei covered her face. She was so shy that she did not dare to raise her eyes. Chapter 792. The award ceremony was held on the afternoon of the next day. With Professor Zhang's help, Poplar Fruit hung a sign with the logo of a leading teacher and snuck into the hotel where the award ceremony was held. Throughout the entire award ceremony, everyone from Higashiyama University was glowing and had their chests puffed out. That was because Higashiyama University was practically the darling of the entire venue. The name of the university and the country was mentioned repeatedly. The organizers even specially introduced Higashiyama University and praised Higashiyama University for its brilliant results this year. Although Poplar Fruit did not win the award himself, Higashiyama University received a lot of attention and praise. Poplar Fruit also felt honored. He stood in the crowd of Higashiyama University and gave Kiki a high five. The foreigners did not think much of it. In their opinion, the Chinese students had always been amazing in mathematics. If it were not for the language barrier, there would be more Chinese teams winning the award every year. On the contrary, several universities in the country were surprised. After all, Higashiyama University's strength was ranked first in Guangdong, but it was not enough when compared to the whole country. Several universities in Beijing, Shanghai, and even Jiangnan had suppressed it to the edge of the top 10 in the country. It was the same for mathematics. As a comprehensive university, Higashiyama University's mathematics strength was only second to none in the whole country. Its position in Guangdong was still somewhat precarious. Otherwise, they would not have been so eager to give Fang Beibei, who had failed to make it to the national team, an early admission slot. Looking at the envious and jealous gazes of several famous universities next to him, Poplar Fruit sighed in his heart. In the end, they are still not strong enough. If Higashiyama University was stronger, they would take it for granted and not think that it was luck. In fact, Poplar Fruit did not know that some narrow-minded people were secretly spreading rumors that Higashiyama University had stolen the questions and prepared in advance. Otherwise, it was impossible for everyone to win the award. However, this rumor was only spread among a few people who didn't like Higashiyama University. Most of them weren't fools. They understood that if the organizers had really leaked the questions to Higashiyama University, then Higashiyama University wouldn't have such an uneven distribution of prizes. Higashiyama University should have gotten all the special prizes. Poplar Fruit had a myriad of thoughts. When he came back to his senses and looked at the rostrum, some time had passed. It was finally time for the grand prize to be presented. Previously, the list of winners had already been announced, and the winning emails had already been sent out. There were no surprises in this award ceremony. The only thing that was present was the excited expressions of the winning teams. In the crowd, under the spotlight, Poplar Fruit only had eyes for the girl in his dreams. She was also very beautiful today. Fang Beibei had only brought jeans because she had not expected to win the grand prize. Only the grand prize would be presented to all members on stage. The rest of the awards would be presented to the captains. Poplar Fruit had accompanied Fang Beibei to shop for the whole afternoon yesterday, just to buy her a fitting, formal suit. Fang Beibei, who usually wore jeans and a t-shirt, also looked very good. Her youthful vitality was irresistible. After changing into a professional suit, she suddenly became quiet. Standing gracefully on the rostrum, she seemed a little reserved. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail, and she looked more capable. However, there was still a bit of a naive expression on her face, just like an office lady who had just joined the company. Poplar Fruit wanted to hold her in his arms and protect her. Originally, he wanted to take a photo of Fang Beibei. However, Poplar Fruit did not want to just look at her through the small LCD screen. He held Fang Beibei's card camera flat and pointed the camera steadily at her. He only pressed the shutter based on his feelings. Fang Beibei nervously received her medal and certificate from the chairman of the award ceremony. Then, she stuttered and recited the thank you speech that Poplar Fruit had prepared for her yesterday. Although it was only 2 sentences, Yanghua could see her nervous and excited appearance. Yanghua couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile on the corner of her mouth. "Stupid girl," Poplar Fruit muttered in his heart. "I have to teach you how to speak English when we get back. Otherwise, when you win the Fields Medal in the future, you won't even be able to recite your thank you speech while standing on the rostrum." After awarding the awards to Fong Beibei's team, the chairman of the awards ceremony finally moved his tall body away. Poplar Fruit saw Fong Beibei holding the medal and looking at it again and again, as if she was looking at a rare treasure. The light shone on Fong Beibei's face. Seeing her cute expression, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt inexplicably moved. This is my glory moment. Poplar Fruit's heart was filled with emotion. Ever since he met Fong Beibei, as he gradually got to know her better, Poplar Fruit knew that Fong Beibei would definitely shine brightly in the future. Just like himself a few days ago, standing on a world-class stage, looking down on the world, the return of the king. However, he did not expect this glory moment to come so quickly. She was only 19 years old. Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that Fong Beibei was about to catch up with his progress. He began to feel a little pressured. Previously in Bali, although Poplar Fruit said that he did not care, in reality, he had become a little complacent because of the excessive praise and worship. The subtitles that he had secretly translated were a typical example. He could not let Fong Beibei surpass him, right? Don't forget, Poplar Fruit, you are a genius with a photographic memory. Poplar Fruit muttered to himself in his heart. God has given you a talent that is hard to come by in 100 years. If you squander it, will you still have the face to see your baby? All right, let's work hard together and witness each other's miracles. Poplar Fruit thought excitedly. He looked at Fong Beibei with shining eyes. Fong Beibei raised her head as if they had a tacit understanding. She picked up the medal and smiled sweetly at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit hurriedly picked up the camera in a hurry, adjusted the focus, and took a picture of Fong Beibei's beautiful appearance. After the awards ceremony, the group photo was taken and the applause was thunderous. Poplar Fruit and Kiki also clapped hard. However, Kiki still did not understand the logic of this. Papa, why do we have to clap? Why did Sister Beibei go up? What is an award? What is mathematics? In the afternoon in this awards ceremony hall, Kiki once again became a million questions. Poplar Fruit was busy explaining to Kiki. In the end, he did not even know what the chairman said. Let me see. After coming down, Fong Beibei intimately hung the medal on Kiki's neck. Then, she took the camera in Poplar Fruit's hand and looked at it excitedly. Oh, Fong Beibei said discontentedly, it's not good. Look, some of the photos are covered by others. It's good. Poplar Fruit smiled and turned to the last photo. Only this one is good. Fong Beibei said with a smile, holding Poplar Fruit's arm. I'm going to send it to my mom. You have to tell her that I took it. Poplar Fruit got close to Fong Beibei's ear and said with a smile, I like it too. The stupid girl in it is so beautiful. You're the stupid girl. Fong Beibei grabbed Poplar Fruit's ear and said with a red face, Stupid girl, you like it? Of course I like it. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and secretly kissed Fong Beibei, who was blushing, and said with a smile, I'm going to put this photo on my mobile phone as a wallpaper. Recently, the new benefits of Genesis have caused a lot of uproar. Low-level writers like Xiao Han have also been greatly affected, and their attendance has been reduced. It can't be helped. Most of Xiao Han's monthly remuneration comes from his attendance, and his subscription results are terrible. However, he still couldn't reduce the number of updates for the sake of full attendance. 5K full attendance in the past, 4K full attendance now. At the very least, when Lil Han didn't have to work so hard in real life, he would still maintain a steady stream of 3 to 6 updates a day. Don't expect an explosion. With Xiao Han's hand speed, it's not easy for him to maintain a stable rate. Although Xiao Han hasn't become a god, he still has the heart to work hard and will continue to work hard. I hope that the readers who like Xiao Han's books will continue to support him. If you have time, you can vote for Xiao Han more. There are no recommendations on the website, so I can only hope that you can help Xiao Han to get on the list. Bow, thank you, and leave to write. Chapter 793. The news of Higashiyama University's 8 teams' victory spread overseas. While Poplar Fruit and the others were packing their luggage and preparing to return to China, the university could not help but post the news on their official website. The front page even had a picture of Fong Beibei's team receiving the highest award in the competition. Needless to say, it must have been Professor Zhang who posted it overnight. At first, the news was not eye-catching. It was only circulated among the teachers at Higashiyama University. Then, a sharp-eyed student assistant discovered that the beautiful girl in the picture was the one who had been the talk of the town on Weibo some time ago. The student assistant excitedly posted his discovery on the internet. It was like a trigger that ignited a barrel of gunpowder. The news instantly spread among the university's students. A lot of people said with envy, jealousy, and hatred, a straight-A student is indeed a straight-A student. It's not tiring for a girl and a boy to win an award together. After seeing this picture, all the single people have already suffered 1,000 points of damage. If it were only students, the news would not have spread so quickly. In a corner where no one could see, someone was working hard to add fuel to the fire, just like Sister Milk Tea. Instantly, the internet was abuzz with rumors about Fong Beibei and Wang Di. Many of Fong Beibei's current and past photos were dug up. Some busybodies even found a picture of Fong Beibei joining the national training team that was published 2 years ago by the Yangqing Evening News. Some people passed by, some praised, some were touched, some gave their blessings, some made sarcastic remarks, and some even cursed viciously. The rumors on the internet were rampant. The next day, a local newspaper in Yangqing republished the news from the internet. Of course, the newspapers at this time were more rigorous. They mainly reported on Higashiyama University's brilliant results and casually mentioned the straight-A student couple. Unknowingly, they confirmed the rumor once again. Poplar Fruit and the others did not know about this because they were still flying 10,000 meters in the air when the news spread like wildfire on the internet. After returning, Professor Zhang and the others kept a low profile. When they returned to school, they let the students go back to their dormitories to rest. Including Fong Beibei, the students who won the award were still excited. Many of them were chatting in low voices on the plane. They didn't rest or sleep during the entire journey, but when they returned to Yangqing, they were yawning in broad daylight. Fong Beibei was also very sleepy. Other than being dragged out for dinner by Poplar Fruit, she slept for more than 10 hours. It was only the next day that she woke up energetically. She had to go home. The school had given the students who had returned with honors half a week off so that they could go home and share their happiness with their families. Poplar Fruit also had to go back to school to report to his teacher. He had been gone for a month. Shun Zongdai was almost scared out of his wits. Fortunately, this time, he had Fong Beibei's special prize to protect him. Poplar Fruit had put in a lot of effort in Higashiyama University's trip to America. The old man might happily let him go because of the glory. However, he had to send Fong Beibei back first. Since he had a car, Poplar Fruit did not want his girlfriend to squeeze into the subway and bus. Now he just had to wait for Song Jiwen to drive his car back. Speaking of which, Song Jiwen was also taking care of Goldie. He wondered if it had become fat again. Last time, when Poplar Fruit brought it back, it was still as agile as before even after a month of running. When he heard the doorbell ring, Poplar Fruit thought that Song Jiwen had come. He was wondering why this guy would come in person. In the end, when he opened the door, Poplar Fruit saw Wang Di standing at the door with red eyes. There were several possibilities for red eyes. It could be that he did not sleep well. It could be that his heart was filled with hatred. It could also be that bacteria got in his eyes and he had red eyes. Of course, Wang Di was the first possibility. Wang Di, what's wrong with you? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Were you too excited to sleep yesterday? Wang Di shook his head. He hesitated for a moment and said, Senior, I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? Fong Beibei also came out from behind. She was carrying a suitcase filled with gifts for her family. Of course, some of them were chosen by Poplar Fruit. Mosquito is not here yet. Wang Di is here, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Put down the suitcase first. It's heavy. I'll carry it later. Wang Di was silent, but he still said, I'm sorry, Fong Beibei, Senior, it's my fault. I shouldn't have posted that Weibo. But, Senior, the original text of my Weibo is not like that. Let me show you. Wang Di hurriedly took out his mobile phone to prove himself. After returning to the dormitory yesterday and hearing the heckling of his roommates, Wang Di knew that such a big thing had happened on the internet. After understanding the ins and outs of the matter, he was so anxious that he couldn't sleep all night. Before, Wang Di had been secretly jealous of Poplar Fruit. But now, after winning the award and hearing about Poplar Fruit's fame in Bali, Wang Di only had respect and awe for Poplar Fruit. As a matter of fact, he came early in the morning to ask for forgiveness. Poplar Fruit knew what he wanted to say. He smiled, pressed Wang Di's hand, and comforted him. Wang Di, listen to me. I don't mean to blame you. Fong Bei also comforted him. Yes, in fact, we all know that. We also know that someone is maliciously hyping up. Don't take it to heart. Poplar Fruit also patted Wang Di's shoulder to comfort him and said with a smile, don't always be influenced by the public opinion on the internet. People have to live in reality. Look at you, how red are your eyes? Go back and rest. The reaction of Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei was beyond Wang Di's expectations. Wang Di was worried all night yesterday. He was afraid that Poplar Fruit would hold a grudge against him. He didn't expect that Poplar Fruit didn't care about it at all. But, Senior Wang Di, you have to stop posting pictures of other girls in the future. It's easy to misunderstand. Fong Bei couldn't help but say to him. Fong Bei was actually a little uncomfortable about this matter. I know. I will pay attention to it in the future, Wang Di said firmly. AI, it's not a big deal. Let bygones be bygones. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Do you want to come in and drink some soy milk? I just made it this morning. Wang Di shook his head like a rattle drum and said, No, I won't disturb you. I'm really sorry. Wang Di apologized again and said goodbye to Poplar Fruit and the others. What Poplar Fruit didn't know was that Wang Di was touched by Poplar Fruit and the others' friendly attitude. On the way back, Wang Di secretly made up his mind. I must use practical actions to help Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei clear up this rumor. If Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei knew about it, they would definitely stop him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Sometimes, an unintentional willow will turn into a shade, and it's not uncommon to see good intentions doing bad things. That's a story for later. Chapter 794. Sending his girlfriend home made him look like a thief. Poplar Fruit drove the car to a small alley one intersection away from Fong Bei's house before letting her get out. Fong Bei was still on guard. She turned to the bus stop and then went home. Poplar Fruit watched Fong Bei go upstairs before going home. If someone passed by Poplar Fruit's Land Rover during this process, they would definitely see that the windows were open. Poplar Fruit was sitting in the front and looking at them. There were also two heads sticking out from the back. One was the curious Kiki, and the other was Goldie, who liked to join the fun. Poplar Fruit didn't guess wrong. It really did grow fatter this month. When Goldie got out of the car with its ears drooping and tail wagging, Poplar Fruit didn't give a good look. However, it had Kiki and Fong Bei to dote on it, so it didn't matter if Poplar Fruit didn't give a good look. Other than Song Jiwen and Goldie, Poplar Fruit understood his teacher's temper very well. Chun Zongdai not only didn't criticize him this time, he didn't even mention that Poplar Fruit went out for a stroll the whole day. He was gratified to express that Poplar Fruit had made him proud. This morning, the deans and directors of the medical, chemistry, biology, as well as several research institutes under the school's name, intentionally or unintentionally, strolled to his territory and praised him for teaching a good student. Professor Zhang's success gave a good inspiration to the other schools that were also facing the world. If they wanted to do well, the outer court had to hold on tight. Shenzongdai knew what they were thinking. They wanted the outer court to help them translate their theses or publish a few secret books for the competition. However, there was only one freakish Poplar Fruit. Chun Zongdai was unmoved, or rather, he was waiting for the best offer. The old man felt that he was able to stand up straight again. Furthermore, he began to think about how to bring more benefits to the academy. Haven't you been translating literary works for publishers? Chun Zongdai said, you should summarize yourself more often and see if you can find some novel translation ideas. Of course, for a topic as big as your translatory theory, we could just focus on one. What I mean is that you have to sum up your experience. Next semester, I plan to let you start an elective course for the third-year students. Poplar Fruit nodded seriously. Just as he was about to continue listening to the teacher's guidance, he was kicked out by Chun Zongdai. Chun Zongdai was actually very busy with work. He still had to attend the school's organization meeting in the afternoon. Back home, Kiki finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She ran to her father and said, "Papa, Kiki wants a cell phone." Goldie, who was following behind, trotted over. It circled around Poplar Fruit's slippers, as if it wanted to make things difficult for them. "Stop it!" Poplar Fruit kicked Goldie away from his poor slippers. He wanted to buy a few bags of teething sticks for Goldie to chew on. This guy had entered the teething stage. If his teeth didn't bite something, he would feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, he didn't dare to bite people. Otherwise, Poplar Fruit would rather lock him in a cage than let him play with Kiki all the time. The teething sticks from abroad were actually the best in terms of quality and nutrition. When he was playing with Alan's family at the amusement park, Poplar Fruit saw someone feeding his dog a teething stick. The dog ate more than half of it before finishing it. However, Poplar Fruit didn't know at that time, so he didn't buy it by the way. Fortunately, he had a college classmate who went to civil aviation and often flew around the world. She also opened a shopping shop, so he could buy it from her. "You're playing with Papa's cell phone again." Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki, helplessly took out his cell phone, knocked on her little head, and said, "Don't play for too long. Take the photos back to Papa when you're done." "Yes, sir." Chi-Chi mischievously said something in French. Then, she giggled as she held her father's phone and ran to the side, dragging the gold with her. In Bali, Luo Danny taught Kiki how to use Instagram and helped her register an account. After that, Kiki couldn't stop. She even secretly took her father's cell phone and asked Luo Danny to teach her how to take selfies and upload them. Later, Poplar Fruit found that there was a new app in his cell phone. He opened it and found that it was all the little girls' narcissistic selfies. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he grabbed Kiki and scolded her. Of course, Kiki's selfies were very ordinary. Originally, Kiki's hands were small. In order not to slip, she usually held the cell phone and then used her thumb to take the photo. In this way, most of the time, she took photos with her head down. The light and angle were a mess. Sometimes, only Kiki's little nose could be seen. However, Poplar Fruit didn't intend to teach her. Instead, he let her explore on her own. Perhaps she would make rapid progress if he taught her, but it was far less satisfying than exploring on her own. However, this time, Kiki didn't play with Goldie for long. Poplar Fruit soon heard Kiki's childish voice say into the phone, "Hello. Who are you?" It seemed that there was a phone call. Poplar Fruit put down the book and stood up from the sofa. "Who am I? Who are you?" "Hee." The little girl was being naughty again. "I'm Kiki. Who are you? Who are you looking for?" Kiki finally answered. Poplar Fruit walked to her side. He didn't say anything and wanted to continue watching her reaction. Poplar Fruit is Kiki's father. Kiki didn't know how, but the other party's voice came out from the speaker. Kiki and Goldie were so scared that they trembled. They couldn't hold the cell phone steadily, and it happened to hit Goldie. Fortunately, Goldie's fluffy hair was soft. It didn't hurt the cell phone, nor did it break. Poplar Fruit hurriedly rescued his cell phone from Goldie's mouth, which was about to explode and fight to the death with the cell phone. "Papa, it's Grandpa Luo." Kiki immediately pretended to be innocent. She put her two little hands behind her back and carefully looked up at her father. Poplar Fruit didn't intend to pursue the matter. He rubbed Kiki's little head and took the phone to the sofa on the side to answer it. "Professor Luo." Poplar Fruit pressed the speaker button and greeted with a smile. Without Kiki saying anything, Poplar Fruit recognized Professor Luo Lin's voice when the voice came out just now. "Huh." Professor Luo Lin laughed. "Poplar Fruit, you really came back." "I just came back last night." "Professor Luo, you're really well informed." Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said with a smile. After coming back, Poplar Fruit's hair was no longer as curly as it was when he was in Bali. It gradually returned to its original appearance. Although curly hair was handsome and had a charming British style, Poplar Fruit preferred natural beauty. He didn't like to worry about his hairstyle every day. If it weren't for the fact that he just came back and didn't have time, Poplar Fruit would have cut his hair back. Chapter 795. Poplar Fruit was very surprised to receive Professor Luo Lin's call. He was surprised not because Professor Luo Lin called him, but because he called him at this time. A few days ago, Professor Luo Lin spoke up for Poplar Fruit in front of the media. Then, Poplar Fruit's own teacher, Chun Zongdai, had no choice but to speak up for Poplar Fruit. Of course, most of them emphasized that Poplar Fruit was a student of Higashiyama University and that Higashiyama University would always support him. This created a confrontation between the public and the private. Even the general public could see that Higashiyama University was in a difficult position and that Beijing International Studies University was coveting Poplar Fruit. This incident became an interesting topic for many students on the internet. However, it was quickly overshadowed by the news that Poplar Fruit and Beckham are good friends. Professor Luo Lin's intentions were clear. Although Poplar Fruit had a good impression of Professor Luo Lin, he could not stand Chun Zongdai's constant talk about the threats outside of Beijing. He asked with a headache, "Professor Luo, why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Hee. Professor Luo Lin avoided the topic and laughed first. He said, "Little Yang, you don't have to be so wary of me like Old Man Chun. Did Old Man Chun tell you to be careful of Luo Lin, the human trafficker?" "No." Poplar Fruit clenched his teeth and said against his will, "Hee, you're already a dean. Why are you still so petty?" Professor Luo Lin acted as if he did not hear Poplar Fruit's denial. He continued, "He's not good at this. He has no tolerance. If I were the dean of Higashiyama University, I would definitely do a better job than Chun Zongdai." Ahem. Poplar Fruit couldn't refute his master's words in front of his disciple. He coughed dryly and didn't want to continue the conversation. "By the way, Poplar Fruit, our school has an exchange program with your school next year. Why don't you come over and take a look? I know you have a girlfriend, haha." Professor Luo Lin revealed his foxtail. "But isn't Zheng Yuji in Beijing?" "No, Professor Luo. I'm sorry, but the focus of my career next year should be in Guangdong province. There's a new publishing house that I will join," Poplar Fruit said with a bitter smile. He didn't tell Professor Luo Lin that Zheng Yujia was coming back to Yangcheng next year. After all, Zheng Yujia was still working at Dongxing Publishing. "Okay, in that case, I'll send a few good students to Higashiyama University in the second half of the year to learn from you. You have to guide my students," Professor Luo Lin said with a smile. He felt like he couldn't be defeated, and the more he was defeated, the braver he became. However, he had a good mentality. After knowing Poplar Fruit's true strength, Professor Luo Lin didn't show that he was superior. In fact, he even put Poplar Fruit on the same level as himself. Poplar Fruit believed that if he and his students met, Professor Luo Lin would make his students call him teacher. While chatting with Professor Luo Lin, Poplar Fruit had a question in his heart. Why is he looking for me? Looking for him to exchange? Poplar Fruit felt like Professor Luo Lin already had the answer in his heart. He only asked casually. As if he heard Poplar Fruit's doubts, Professor Luo Lin smiled and said, "Poplar Fruit, do you think I called just to tell you this?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head and asked, "Professor Luo, why are you looking for me?" "Someone asked me to come here." Professor Luo Lin laughed and said, "Asked by someone?" Poplar Fruit was confused and asked, "Who is it? You've met him before. He's a big star?" Professor Luo Lin said mysteriously, "Big star? Met him?" Poplar Fruit's first impression was Prince Zhou, who he met at Bali Fashion Week. Prince Zhou could be said to be his biggest star. However, this matter shouldn't have anything to do with Prince Zhou. How could Prince Zhou have any relationship with Professor Luo Lin? Relationship? This was a very good way to think about it. Poplar Fruit started to think about the celebrities that Professor Luo Lin might know or have some relationship with, and he really thought of one. Moreover, it was someone he met walking with Professor Luo Lin. "Professor Healing?" Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. The last time Poplar Fruit went to Beijing, he met him when he was walking with Zheng Yuji at Beijing International Studies University. "That's right." Professor Luo Lin laughed. "Then guess again. Why did he ask me to look for you? Happy base camp. Poplar Fruit said speechlessly. Was there any to guess? Professor, he was almost synonymous with Happy Base Camp. It was almost because there were a few other good hosts. As expected of Poplar Fruit, your brain is more flexible than the average person. Professor Luo Lin praised. That's right. He Ling wanted to invite you to Happy Base Camp. But not just him, even the entire Mango Station doesn't have your contact information. Later on, he remembered that I knew you, so he came looking for me. Poplar Fruit was really confused. He scratched his head and asked, why did he invite me to Happy Base Camp? I'm not a superstar, and aren't Happy Base Camp only hosted by A-listers? Why would anyone watch if he invited me? Poplar Fruit really didn't have any intention of becoming famous. He didn't know that if he hadn't gone to America and his whereabouts hadn't become strange, there would have been reporters surrounding him the moment he returned to China. A few days ago, there were even paparazzi waiting inside Higashiyama University. However, they were all chased away by the security guards. You still don't know? Professor Luo Lin asked in surprise. You don't know how much the newspapers have been hyping you these past 2 days. At first, it was very noisy, but that Luan told the reporters that you were the best male model she had ever seen, and then the newspaper started talking about you. Now, there's a saying that you're Asia's top male model. With the domestic public's boastful public opinion, it was really possible. However, Poplar Fruit was speechless. He said, Professor Luo Lin, you don't believe it, do you? Believe it or not. Professor Luo Lin laughed. But I think you'll do well in the modeling industry. You'll be #1 in Asia soon. Forget it. I'm not interested in modeling. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and shook his head. Why did Professor he invite me? Of course, it's because you have a topic to talk about. Professor Luo Lin laughed. You're too mysterious. If you're invited to the show, the audience will know what kind of person you are and how you became famous. I believe a lot of people will like to watch it. Should I participate? Poplar Fruit really hesitated. If it was someone else, Poplar Fruit would definitely refuse. But because of Professor Luo Lin's face, Poplar Fruit couldn't directly say no. Besides, Professor, he was also a host that Poplar Fruit liked. Fast Book was the only domestic variety show that he and Fong Beibei liked. Chapter 796. Poplar Fruit didn't immediately agree, as he didn't want to be in the limelight. Of course, he didn't directly refuse, only saying that he would consider it. However, after Poplar Fruit told Fong Beibei about this matter over the phone, Fong Beibei excitedly urged Poplar Fruit to go. Help me get teacher He's and Fatty Haitao's autographs. Fong Beibei was a typical variety show fan and would often drag Poplar Fruit to watch variety shows together at night. In the end, Poplar Fruit was still convinced by Fong Beibei. After putting down his phone, he bitterly smiled and picked it up again, calling Professor Luo Lin. Just like that, the itinerary was set. However, the recording of the show would definitely take some time, as Mango TV still needed to prepare some information for him. In the afternoon, when they were free, Poplar Fruit brought Kiki and Jean Z out for a stroll. After a stroll, they arrived at the school's Student Activity Center. After a month of development, the multidimensional teaching club had already grown to a considerable scale. With the efforts of Poplar Fruit and Wang Yuba, they had even applied for a house in the activity center. The house was their base. Of course, the main contributor was still Wang Yuba, while Poplar Fruit had only remotely asked the stubborn old man Shinzongdai for help. Wang Yuba was truly a talented manager. During the time that Poplar Fruit wasn't around, he had managed the club very well. According to him, the club already had over 30 like-minded students, and on average, everyone would come over to teach the children every 2 to 3 days. Of course, Hu Junji's girlfriend, Song Qing, was also very helpful. She had only been in the Chinese department for a little over a month, but she had already roped in 3 new recruits. It was said that they were all graduate students with good attainments in ancient poetry. When Poplar Fruit arrived, he happened to see Wang Yuba standing at the door of the classroom, watching. Lin Xingshan was teaching inside, and in a place where the camera couldn't capture, There was a girl listening to the lecture attentively, even meticulously taking notes. "Don't you have classes today?" Poplar Fruit patted Wang Yuba's shoulder and asked with a smile. "Then why are you here?" Wang Yuba was shocked by Poplar Fruit. When he turned around and saw that it was Poplar Fruit, he almost screamed. Luckily, he remembered that this was a classroom. Wang Yuba's and quickly pulled Poplar Fruit to the side. "My dear brother, you scared me. There's no class this afternoon." Wang Yuba said with a smile. "Senior brother, when did you come back? You didn't even call me." "Papa, Kiki wants to go down and play," Kiki shouted. She and Jean Z felt that this cement wall was far less comfortable than the grass downstairs. Moreover, not far away, there were many people walking dogs. Standing here, they could hear the dogs' cheers. "Wait a minute, when Sister Lin Xingshan comes out, let her take you to play." Poplar Fruit held Kiki's small arm and said with a smile, "Kiki's playing abroad has become wild." Poplar Fruit smiled at Wang Yuba and explained, "Yesterday, she came back at this time. She was tired from the journey and came back to rest, so she didn't have time to tell you." "No, later you have to give me a few autographs," Wang Yuba said with a smile. "Now you're a big celebrity. The news and newspapers are all about your deeds." When he talked about this matter, he didn't look serious at all. If Poplar Fruit didn't know that he wasn't so lively when he was working, he really wouldn't be at ease letting him manage the multidimensional volunteer teaching society. When Yijing and the others came back, they were always showing off their bags. "We were all so envious," Wang Yuba said with a sigh and shook his head. He regretted that he didn't study hard in the past. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't believe him. He laughed and scolded. "Were you envious of? If you are willing to study hard and get first place in class, I'll take you abroad to play next year." This wasn't a promise made by Poplar Fruit. In fact, Poplar Fruit was also thinking in his heart, if this group of classmates were really serious and sincere in helping those children with him, Poplar Fruit would definitely take them out to play next year. Of course, they wouldn't go abroad, but they would pick up the children of Xiong Village and go to some historical places in the country that were worth learning about. Of course, Poplar Fruit wouldn't say this out loud. It would be better to send it out as a surprise in the future. After hearing Poplar Fruit's words, Wang Yuba immediately changed the topic and became serious. "Hey, senior, let me tell you. You were gone for a month. Although you recorded a few videos for the children, they missed you so much," Wang Yuba said with a smile. "Every day, they would chase our teacher and ask if you were back." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "It's okay. Let me meet the children later. I also want to talk to them for a while. Is there any problem with the arrangement? I saw a girl in the room waiting to teach the children." "It's okay," Wang Yuba said with certainty. "You mean Wang Weiwei? She just joined this month, and she's still a freshman this year. Now, she's still learning from Shan Shan and the others. Originally, she was scheduled to give a trial lesson this afternoon, but it's okay. She'll be willing to wait for 2 more days. I think this child is quite serious." Poplar Fruit said with emotion, "She's still taking notes." Wang Yuba nodded and said, "She's very good. She's always very active. Usually after class, she would come to help. She's also very patient when communicating with the children. She's a good teacher." And Shan Shan. When Wang Yuba talked about Lin Xingshan, his face was full of smiles. He said, "Let me show you something." Wang Yuba took out 2 pieces of folded A4 paper from the sling bag in his hand and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit opened it. It was a very detailed guide to the use of remote education equipment. It was written very carefully and carefully. Poplar Fruit could even see the combination of the camera equipment and the projector, and how the teacher should stand so that the students could see the teacher and the small blackboard behind them. The angle of the teacher's eyes should be when looking at the camera, so that the students wouldn't think that the teacher was looking at them with his chin. Shan Shan summarized it herself. Wang Yuba said with a smile, "She's so awesome. She spent at least 3 days a week with us and sorted out a lot of information. Like this, many teachers said it was very useful." Poplar Fruit was a little touched. He reached out his hand and patted Wang Yuba's shoulder. He said, I think I'm very lucky to have met such awesome people. I thought that with Wang Yuba, I would be very relieved. I didn't expect that there would be Shan Shan, Wang Weiwei, and many other kind people. Brother, you're making me blush, Wang Yuba said with a smile. No, really, I thank you on behalf of these children. Poplar Fruit said seriously. Chapter 797. By the way, how's our progress going now? I see one classroom. Is it enough for so many children to attend? Previously, when we were abroad, it was still somewhat inconvenient to communicate, Poplar Fruit asked. He finally let go of the noisy Kiki's hand and let her play with Goldie in the corridor. He was just paying attention to her movements. Although the guardrail was much higher than Kiki's, Poplar Fruit was still very worried. Previously, Poplar Fruit had asked Wang Yuba if he needed funds to buy more equipment, because there were children in 6 grades. From an educational point of view, this is not enough, Wang Yuba said, but from a practical point of view, after testing and understanding these Meow children, we found that, in fact, regardless of whether the children are in the upper grade or the lower grade, their foundation is not too different. Poplar Fruit agreed. After all, after Professor Meng retired, no one taught for 2 years. Later, when Professor Meng came back, he only taught for more than half a year. After 3 years of neglect, except for Xiong Xiaolin, the other children's studies were really a mess. And now we have a limited space. It's not easy to divide them into different grades. Wang Yuba said frankly, one classroom is only enough for one teacher, so for the time being, we'll let them attend classes together. Brother Long helped us to gather the cameras of the 6 classrooms onto one screen. Wang Yuba said, this way, we can let the teacher observe the children's learning state. This won't work. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, there are too many people. One teacher can't take care of so many children. He clearly understood this point. With more than 300 children gathered on one screen, even Poplar Fruit could not grasp the situation of all of them at a glance. I know you want to save some money for me. Poplar Fruit smiled and patted Wang Yuba's shoulder. He smiled and said, but the children's studies are more important. You don't have to worry about spending money. I plan to set up a charity fund after returning from abroad. Poplar Fruit said confidently, a friend of mine told me that charity can't be done by one person alone. If we want distance education to benefit more children in poor areas, we have to call more people to join us. Fund? Wang Yuba's jaw dropped as he looked at Poplar Fruit. How much are we investing? You want to set up a fund? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, see, you've underestimated your senior brother, haven't you? Let me tell you, we invested more than 30 million yuan in the beginning. I picked the majority of the money, and when I was overseas, I collected some from my friends. With so much money, it's better to set up a charity fund for professional, transparent, and formal management. Only then can we make the most of it. 30 million yuan, according to the current average investment in the children in Xiong village, would benefit more than 5,000 children. Wang Yuba was really speechless this time. He knew that Poplar Fruit wanted to promote distance education, but he didn't expect Poplar Fruit to invest so much money in it. The money collected wouldn't be too much. Most of it must have been paid by Poplar Fruit himself. Wang Yuba guessed correctly. In addition to the 18 million yuan that Fang Bebe gave him, Poplar Fruit also invested more than 1 million euros, 8 million yuan, from his trip to Bali. Of course, there were also Ardul, Beckham, and Alan from the United States who had promised to donate. There were all kinds of things, but it was definitely more than 30 million. Then do we still need to continue recruiting? Wang Yuba asked doubtfully. To be honest, there are more than 30 people now. Isn't it more than enough to teach 300 students? If we look at it from the perspective of the number of people. That's right, it was indeed so. On average, one teacher was responsible for 10 students. It seemed that even the children in the city didn't necessarily have such good treatment. However, it was from the perspective of the number of people. After Wang Yuba finished speaking, he immediately realized that his logic was wrong. Senior, I was wrong. I forgot to take everyone's time into consideration. After all, the people in the club were all university students. Basically, they were at the age where they needed their own time and space the most. Not to mention them. Even Poplar Fruit couldn't follow this group of children for more than 8 hours a day like a regular teacher. Apart from their own schoolwork, they could only use 1 or 2 hours to teach the children at most. Who knew how many times they could come a week? Poplar Fruit nodded and said, "Recruiting. We need to continue recruiting. We still need a lot of people." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Yuba, did you forget? When I first introduced you, I said that our distance education was not only for teaching children, but also to provide more opportunities for the children to fully develop their own interests and hobbies. So we still need to go one step further and recruit new members." Poplar Fruit explained, "Students from the sports department can also consider joining. We still lack a sports teacher. There's also music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and so on." Wang Yuba quickly took out a small notebook and wrote it down. Poplar Fruit wasn't just talking on paper. He had communicated with Fat Dragon. This guy was asked by Poplar Fruit to be stationed in the mountains. It was estimated that he wouldn't be able to come back until next month's winter. Currently, Xiong Village relied on the funds left behind by Poplar Fruit and the support of the county's chief, Meng Ping, to build a sports stadium. Not only did it have a basketball court, but it also had a small soccer field. Similar long-distance equipment was being installed one after another. In the near future, the children would definitely be able to receive physical education under the guidance of distant sports teachers. Everything in the Xiong clan was on the right path. Poplar Fruit couldn't slack off in Yangcheng. Since he was back, he would work hard to obtain more resources and support for the multidimensional teaching so that the teachers could keep up with the development of the school. But Yuba, you have to distinguish which students are doing this for the sake of charity hours, and which students are like Shan Shan, sincerely wanting to do this well. Poplar Fruit laughed. Of course, no matter which student wants to join the team to help the children in the mountains, we welcome them. Wang Yuba looked at Poplar Fruit thoughtfully and nodded. Even if other teams are willing to help, we also welcome them. Poplar Fruit said, "What I mean is that we should include members like Shan Shan as our main team. For students who are willing to contribute, not only do we have to support them to improve their teaching standards, but we also have to give them more resources. You don't have to tell them this directly, but in the future, I'll work hard to obtain more opportunities for them to get more points from the school." Poplar Fruit said seriously. Chapter 798. Wang Di's Weibo had gained more than 10,000 fans in a month due to the 2 times he had attracted the attention of the internet. Although he could not compare to Poplar Fruit, previously, Poplar Fruit had gathered millions of fans because he posted many photos of Kiki. He was still considered a popular person on campus. However, it was precisely because Wang Di's Weibo had not been updated for a long time that it had lost a lot of popularity. As a result, Wang Di held it in for an entire day and pondered for a long time before he finally posted a clarification Weibo that would not be easily misunderstood and criticized by others. In the end, only 1,000 people reposted it after a night had passed. Of course, according to the logic of the internet, the 1,000 people tonight would have more than 5,000 reposts tomorrow and 20 to 30,000 the day after tomorrow. Then, the index would rise and finally cause a stir on the internet. One must know that Wang Di's Weibo had dragged Poplar Fruit out and told everyone that Poplar Fruit was Fong Beibei's boyfriend. He told everyone not to believe the rumors on the internet. He also listed some of Poplar Fruit's great achievements and wanted everyone to understand how amazing Fong Beibei's boyfriend was. Many people had already linked Poplar Fruit with China's #1 male model who's shown in Bali Fashion Week. However, because Wang Di did not post the photos, everyone was still vague and uncertain. If things really developed according to the original trajectory, then the internet's popularity of the genius couple that had just subsided would probably start to boil again. However, the world was full of all kinds of coincidences and changes. Even Wang Gugu, who was fighting for the headlines in the future, was not defeated time and time again. In the end, the netizens could not stand it anymore and teased him to make the headlines. Wang Di's Weibo encountered the same situation. It only became popular overnight, but the next day, it was squeezed into a corner by the overwhelming news on the internet and the media. Everything started with a phone call in the middle of the night in Gaumi County. It was a call from Sweden. At night, a small bungalow in Gaomi County was brightly lit. Then, Beijing also received the notice. That night, many people could no longer fall asleep. When it was close to dawn, almost all the major news media in the country were alarmed. The editor-in-chief personally wrote the article, and the typesetting that had already been sent to the printing plant was removed and replaced with new headlines. In the morning, Yang Guo was wiping Chi-Chi's mouth with a wet towel after drinking soy milk. Her mouth was covered with a layer of white foam. Her phone suddenly rang. The familiar Sky City startled Goldie, who was lying on the side and wagging its tail in boredom. Sigh. No. Before Poplar Fruit could stop it, Goldie happily jumped on the ground and ran to the sofa. It opened its mouth and bit Poplar Fruit's phone. Goldie. Poplar Fruit felt a headache as he watched the chubby Goldie run back and stand in front of him while wagging its tail. Poplar Fruit took back the phone from Goldie's big mouth, but it was already wet with Goldie's saliva. This guy didn't find the right way to curry favor. How could Poplar Fruit answer the phone? Seeing that her father's eyebrows were twitching and he was about to lose his temper, Kiki hurriedly stepped on Goldie's back and got down from the chair. She stood in front of Goldie, raised her head, and said pitifully, "Papa, don't hit Goldie." Poplar Fruit just wanted to kick this guy and tell it not to bite things in the future, but Kiki stood in front of him, so he couldn't do anything. And at this time, the phone had been ringing for a long time. Poplar Fruit had to hold the phone with 2 fingers and answer the phone first. Poplar Fruit put on speaker. While answering the phone, he wiped the phone with a tissue. It was a number he had saved a long time ago, but Poplar Fruit usually didn't want to disturb the old man. Previously, he would occasionally call him to ask questions about literature. In the past month, Poplar Fruit was too busy to take care of himself, so he didn't contact him. "Mr. Imo, hello." Poplar Fruit took the initiative to greet him with a smile. Poplar Fruit. "Haha, I don't want to chat with you anymore." Imo Yin seemed to be in a very good mood, and the sun was shining brightly in the morning. "Let me tell you a piece of good news." "Okay, I'm listening." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Yesterday, Sweden called. In fact, the old man had been on the phone the whole morning, but every time, he couldn't help but be so excited that his voice trembled. Poplar Fruit, you won an award. You really won an award." "Sweden?" "Sweden." Poplar Fruit's eyes widened. He couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Imo, the Nobel Prize in Literature? Is it true?" "It's true." Imo Yin laughed heartily. "Professor Ma Yueran informed me personally. It's absolutely true. Congratulations." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "This is great news." The old man didn't need to be too modest in front of his friends. If he was happy, he would be happy. If he pretended to be calm, he wouldn't be modest but proud. He laughed heartily and said, "Poplar Fruit, in fact, I'm calling to thank you. If you didn't help me with the translation, my work wouldn't have been able to enter the eyes of the judges." Many people thought that Mo Yin won the Nobel Prize in Literature because of sandalwood punishment, but that wasn't the case. The award was given to Mo Yin personally, which meant that he had used many of his excellent works to impress the judges. Mo Yin himself knew that this included life and death fatigue, Frog, and a few short works translated by Poplar Fruit. "Don't." Poplar Fruit hurriedly said respectfully, "You won the award because of the excellence of your own work. When I translated it, I was so touched that I was in a mess. I don't dare to be greedy for credit for this." Of course. The old man smiled and said, "You're a good kid. I asked Professor Ma Yueran, and he said that he didn't translate as well as you. That's because Professor Ma is being modest." Poplar Fruit didn't dare to be proud. He said, "Professor Ma is an expert in China, and he's very accomplished. How can I compare to him?" "No matter what." The old man smiled and said, "I, old Mo, am not a pedantic person. When it comes to rewards, you and your friends in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have helped me a lot. It's only right for me to say a few words of thanks. This is what we should do," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In front of the national interest, Poplar Fruit was duty-bound to help. Compared to the two old men in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you, Poplar Fruit, are only in your early 20s this year, and you're already at such a level. Work hard. I have high hopes for you." The old man smiled and said, Continue to work hard in the future. The future belongs to you young people. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and said, Teacher Imo, please don't praise me anymore. If you praise me again, my butt will be raised to the sky. I still have a lot to learn from you. Chapter 799. Huh, you're such a humble kid. The old man laughed heartily. Didn't you always ask me for advice? Since you're calling me teacher, I'll promise you that you'll be my student from now on. Don't think that old Master Imo Yin was too proud. Even before he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, old Master Imo was a master of literature in the country. He had won many awards in the country and abroad. The number of people who wanted to be his disciple could line up from Gaomi all the way to Beijing. The old man was a low-key person, and he rarely took in students. Until now, no one had seen any of his students showing off in public. Poplar Fruit was overjoyed. He quickly said, Teacher, you're so nice. When will you be free? Since he was going to be a student, there had to be a banquet. In the past, Chun Zongdai stubbornly refused. What do you think? The old man smiled. How could I be free recently? The news hasn't spread yet. Look, the phone at home hasn't stopped ringing. Poplar Fruit smiled. He understood the troubles of being famous. He smiled and said, Okay, when you're free, I'll visit you and give you a gift. You can have a gift, but not a gift. The old man smiled. Oh, right. Do you have any plans for December? December? Poplar Fruit wasn't a high official, nor was he a celebrity. Why would he plan his schedule 2 months apart? Plus, it would be cold at that time. Poplar Fruit should still be at home. Poplar Fruit answered honestly, No. That's good. The old man smiled and said, Then hurry up and get a passport. In December, I'll take you to Sweden. Poplar Fruit asked stupidly, Sweden? Award ceremony? I'll go too. Hiya. I'm looking for a Swedish translator. You did a good job last time, so I want you to help. The old man smiled and said, What's wrong? You don't want to translate for me for free? How can I not be willing? When Poplar Fruit heard this, he puffed out his chest and laughed. However, I'm a little puzzled. There should be a lot of people lining up to be teacher's disciple, right? Why would it be my turn? Poplar Fruit didn't say it explicitly, but Grandpa Sheng understood that Poplar Fruit meant that the country would send someone to accompany him to the award ceremony. After all, it was such a big event. The honor of the country and its people couldn't be missed. However, the old man said calmly, It's not up to them to do whatever they want. I believe that we can still make the decision to appoint a translator. The old man laughed and said, Of course, they will say that you are inexperienced and not strong enough. Poplar Fruit, let me ask you, if you were to have a fair fight with those disciples from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, do you have the confidence to defeat them? Poplar Fruit had never considered this question, and he had never seen how strong the disciples from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were. However, Poplar Fruit was confident in his own strength. This wasn't blind arrogance. Poplar Fruit believed that his mastery of Swedish, whether it was spoken or written, was not inferior to some of the experts in Sweden, let alone those non-native speakers. Since his teacher had confidence in him, Poplar Fruit couldn't admit defeat. He took a deep breath and said word by word, Teacher, don't worry. I have confidence. That's good. Grandpa Sheng smiled with relief. Then you should prepare early. We will go to Sweden in December. After the phone call, Poplar Fruit glanced at Kiki and Gold. Kiki was holding her picture album and sitting on the ground, telling Gold, who was lying there, a story. Poplar Fruit listened carefully and found that the little girl was telling Gold a story about a baby bear that he had told her before. She mixed it into the picture album and told it to Gold. However, Gold obviously didn't understand, and it was also very bored. It lay there with its ears drooping, like a little monster in Stephen Chow's Journey to the West. It was so annoyed by Tang Sanzang's nagging that it wanted to die. As if it felt the gaze of its master, Gold raised its head and looked at Poplar Fruit. It opened its mouth and wagged its tail. It wasn't clear whether it was expressing affection or apology. Poplar Fruit felt that it was the former. How could this idiot admit its mistake honestly? Poplar Fruit shook his head and ignored the two little guys. He first cleaned up the table, then found a wet towel to wipe the phone a few more times. It didn't feel good to be defiled by a dog. It couldn't be wiped away. After a while, the phone rang again. This time, it was Zheng Yujie calling. Poplar Fruit didn't answer the phone, but he knew what she wanted to say. What? Not angry anymore? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. He was talking about the day before yesterday, when Poplar Fruit came back. He forgot to tell her. Then yesterday, she somehow heard news, probably from Xiong village. Kai Simin was still temporarily stationed there, and sent a long WeChat message saying that Poplar Fruit was bad. At the end, she sent a furious emoji. After that, Poplar Fruit called her and refused to answer. Poplar Fruit was also innocent. Not only Zheng Yujie, he didn't tell anyone when he came back, except for his family. Song Jiwen only told him because he wanted to drive Poplar Fruit. The main reason was that he was in the limelight before, so he wanted to hide it for a while. Of course, after Zheng Yujie flipped out, Poplar Fruit quickly replied to many WeChat apologies. Not to mention others, Zheng Yujie was so close to him. It was Poplar Fruit's fault that he didn't say anything. However, Zheng Yujie still refused to talk to him. Now that she knew that Old Master Mo had won the award, she couldn't sit still and had to put down her anger and take the initiative to call Poplar Fruit. Angry? What's there to be angry about? Zheng Yujie said against her heart. Her voice was still bright and unruly, but there was a bit of resentment hidden in her unruly voice. However, it was much better than the long WeChat message she sent. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Okay, let's not dwell on it, okay? I already said that it was my fault. What a good child to know your mistakes and change." Oomph. Zheng Yujie snorted twice, indicating that she hadn't completely forgiven him. However, she said, "I'm not calling to talk to you about this. Do you know what's the big news today?" As expected, Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "I know. The TV news today said that the sun rose from the west, causing the tides to be unstable. They strongly suggest that we stay at home and don't go anywhere. The earth is very dangerous." Poplar Fruit, you're messing around again, Zheng Yujie said angrily. She wanted to laugh, but thinking that she was still angry, she raised her voice slightly to cover her laughter. "I'm talking to you about something serious. Do you still remember Mo Yin?" Poplar Fruit chuckled and said, "I remember. Teacher Mo Yin just called me." Poplar Fruit, Zheng Yujie finally flipped out. She didn't care about her image and shouted into the phone, "Did you already know? Are you trying to make fun of me? Does everyone think that Poplar Fruit got his reputation by riding on someone's coattails? Little Han doesn't think so." Chapter 800. After messing around for a while, Zheng Yujie finally got down to business with Poplar Fruit. Only a short-sighted guy like Poplar Fruit would be ignorant and not notice the potential opportunity behind Teacher Mo Yan's award. If we immediately release Teacher Mo Yan's book on Amazon International Library, it will definitely be very popular. Zheng Yujie was furious with Poplar Fruit. She decided not to keep him in suspense and directly said to Poplar Fruit, "It's rare to have such an opportunity. If we don't seize it, it will be a waste. The Nobel Prize attracts the attention of the whole world. Look at the winners of the Nobel Prize in Literature every year. Don't their books instantly become popular and their global sales increase greatly? Even after a few years, as long as people think of the Nobel Prize in Literature, they will continue to buy their books." Zheng Yujie said, "I understand." Poplar Fruit said, "You want us to use Teacher Mo Yan's book to build the reputation of our publishing house, right?" Poplar Fruit was not stupid. After Zheng Yujie's reminder, he immediately understood the relationship between the two. One had to know that the Nobel Prize in Literature was a golden signboard. After hearing that Mo Yin had won the award, those who had not read his books or did not know about him would want to search for him. As long as his books were on the market, there would definitely be a lack of attention. Zheng Yujie had never thought of making much money from Teacher Mo Yin. When she signed a contract with him, it was stated that if he won the award, the percentage of profits would increase by a certain amount. After deducting the channel fee, Teacher Mo Yin would get more than half of the profits. Of course, as long as the base was large enough, the publishing house could still make money. However, more importantly, They could earn enough attention from this. If 1 billion readers from different countries could learn about teacher Mo Yan's books through Amazon, then 1/20th of them, which was 50 million people, would notice the publisher of these books and follow the trail. In the end, 5 million people would become their first fans. Then, Poplar Fruit and Company would succeed. After all, Poplar Fruit himself had translated 5 of the most popular fantasy novels some time ago. He could feel that these web novels were actually quite attractive to Western readers. Although they did not have any obvious advantages over Western bestsellers, these novels had novel ideas and tempting plots. For the more modern Western life and fragmented reading, they were simply a cold and delicious Sunday in summer. However, after Poplar Fruit handed in the manuscript, Pang Yu was not very confident. This was because she knew that the Amazon International Library was a place where good and bad people mixed together. The huge library gave their users too many choices. Their newly established publishing house could easily be drowned in the vast sea of books. No matter how good a book was, if it was not discovered, it would only end up dying in silence. Don't think that all gold would shine. Nowadays, not many people would be willing to sift through the glittering gold grain by grain. They were working hard to continue preparing, breaking in the newly established team, and then patiently waiting for an opportunity or thinking about a marketing plan that could make a name for themselves. In the end, the surprise really came, and it came very quickly. However, at this time, Zheng Yujia was still at Dongxin Publishing in the distant capital. At this time, Pang Yu had fully grasped the overall situation of the newly established publishing house. The old staff and the new staff were breaking in. She even had to recruit and poach people everywhere. It's okay. Even if it's a rush, we have to work overtime to grab this opportunity in our hands. Zheng Yujia was ambitious. She said in high spirits, "I just called Auntie Pang. She's taking action now." Although the publishing house had bought the translation copyright of hundreds of thousands of web novels, in reality, the only reliable translator was Poplar Fruit. However, the good news was that in the past 6 months, Poplar Fruit had slowly accumulated 5 books, including Sandalwood Punishment and Fatigue of Life and Death in 10 different languages. His original intention was to use the translation to improve his understanding of these foreign languages. The reason why the books could be translated into 10 different languages was that Mr. Mo Yan had sold the English translation copyright long ago, and Sanskrit wasn't suitable for publishing. There weren't many people who could understand Sanskrit nowadays. Of course, the French and Swedish copyright of Sandalwood Punishment had also been sold. So in total, Poplar Fruit had only provided about 40 translations. That was a lot. If this number was placed in front of others, it could be said that an author wouldn't be able to translate it even if he didn't eat or drink for 10 years. The reason why Poplar Fruit was so efficient was that he had mastered the 13 languages. Whether it was translating from Chinese to other languages or from other languages to other languages, Poplar Fruit could still do it at his fingertips. When translating a book, he basically had a comprehensive understanding of the whole book during the first translation. In the following 9 translations, Poplar Fruit was like copying and pasting. It was as easy as eating and drinking. Of course, the word count was also a very important factor. Although there were 5 books, the word count was less than 2 million words. Compared with the 5 web novels translated by Poplar Fruit, the smallest one was more than 1 for million words, while the largest one was more than 5 million words. However, Poplar Fruit felt that translating web novels was way too easy for him. He could almost read and write at the same time, just like doing a parallel biography. It wasn't to say that web novels were easy books, but that web novels were basically a series of routines. Unlike traditional literature, one had to consider the background of the story, and the other had to consider whether the author was playing word games or not. Poplar Fruit felt that he could finish one web novel that focused on the plot of the story in a week, and that was only after spending 2 hours every night. Zheng Yujia told Poplar Fruit that the publishing house was doing 2 things. One was to quickly proofread, typeset, and designed the translations of Mo Yan's novels that Poplar Fruit had handed in to achieve the best results for publication. Amazon International Library could be printed into books. The other thing was that Pang Yu would personally lead the publishing house's most elite marketing team to the U.S. tonight to negotiate with Amazon to strive for the best marketing resources. What did Poplar Fruit need to do? He didn't need to worry about the business side. Poplar Fruit only needed to spend more time translating the remaining 6 novels that Mo Yan had provided to them, which still had English copyrights. They wanted to play a role in the second wave of marketing war. Speed was the most important thing in war. The Nobel Prize had just been announced, and Poplar Fruit felt that the world had begun to go crazy again. Xiao Han said that Mr. Mo was just an opportunity. Poplar Fruit wouldn't rely on him. He would conquer the world with his own strength. Chapter 801. While Mr. Mo Yan attracted all the attention, the popularity of Poplar Fruit in Bali Fashion Week finally died down. Although the translation work had increased, Poplar Fruit's life didn't change much. During the day, he still had time to read books, play with his gold, and play with his friends with Kiki. Sometimes, when Kiki was playing with Chun Zongdai's kids, he would go to the Student Activity Center to teach the kids in Xiong Village. Therefore, some people would ask, as a graduate student, doesn't Poplar Fruit need to attend classes? Indeed, he didn't need to. Poplar Fruit was no longer an ordinary student. Not only Chin Zongdai, but the other teachers in the school also thought so. If they really wanted Poplar Fruit to attend their classes, they wouldn't want to. Damn it, you're better than me. Aren't you trying to ruin my reputation by attending my classes? Therefore, Poplar Fruit was given special permission by the school. He didn't need to attend classes like the other students. He only needed to take the final exam. If he scored more than 80 points, the credit would be his. That's right. For Poplar Fruit, there was no such thing as passing with 60 points. The next day, Poplar Fruit started to feel bored in the teacher's dormitory. Unlike Kiki, he didn't want to go out, but Fong Bebe wouldn't come back until the next day, so there was no one to talk to. Poplar Fruit worked as a translator for a couple of hours, so he felt that he needed to go out and have some fun. Therefore, he drove to Song Jiwen's place. It was the weekend. He was supposed to go to Chun Amlin's new Tai Chi dojo. Song Jiwen and her had been working on the renovation of the dojo. However, Poplar Fruit didn't want Kiki to smell the formaldehyde, so he told them to come back early and have dinner together. Wait! Yang was stood at the door and stopped Song Jiwen, who was about to rush into the private room, with a smile. Have you taken a shower? Let me see if there's any scent left. Do I even need to smell it? Song Jiwen had been warned by Poplar Fruit to remove the smell before coming over. He said angrily, Look, my hair is still wet. Can't you see that I'm taking a shower? Poplar Fruit chuckled. Your hair isn't dry yet. Let's go outside and dry it before coming back. Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and punched Poplar Fruit hard. He knew that Poplar Fruit wouldn't feel pain. Then he said, Get lost. Could it be that in lawn you want to go up and sniff too? Poplar Fruit laughed. He felt that Song Jiwen had been hanging out with Chun Amlin recently. He had even learned a lot of northern dialects. Chun Amlin said seriously, Brother Yang, it's nothing. He's doing it for Kiki. Song Jiwen was speechless. He glanced at Chun Amlin and said, Miss, I'm helping you, okay? I say, old Gua, don't mess around. She committed a serious crime of harassment. Hey! Chun Amlin pushed Song Jiwen away. Song Jiwen couldn't resist. Chun Amlin said boldly, I don't care. Why do you care? Seeing Song Jiwen's depressed look, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Okay, I was just joking with Mosquito. Don't take it seriously. Why would I touch you? Back in the private room, Kiki and Goldie each occupied a chair. Kiki was still sitting high in the child's seat. Her 4 eyes looked at them as they walked in. Song Jiwen whistled, and then Poplar Fruit saw Goldie jump down from the chair and run up. Song Jiwen took out a bag of dog biscuits and stuffed 2 into Goldie's mouth. Poplar Fruit looked speechlessly at Song Jiwen's proud look. He seemed to be saying, See, I'm more popular than you, the owner. Poplar Fruit snatched the dog biscuits from Song Jiwen's hand and scolded, Mosquito, don't feed him. I've been trying to help him lose weight recently. Look at how fat he has become after being with you for a month. What do you mean fat? This is clearly healthy, okay? Song Jiwen looked at Poplar Fruit with disdain and asked Chun Anlin to sit down. He continued, don't you think the color of Goldie's fur looks a lot better? Puppies in the growth stage need to eat more and have enough nutrition. It was right to have enough nutrition, but Goldie was obviously overnourished. Poplar Fruit didn't want to see a fat ball running with small steps in the future. That was really too ugly. Unlike Goldie, Kiki didn't have much to say to Song Jiwen. Instead, she liked to be held by sister Song Jiwen and chatted with her about her interesting experiences abroad. This was a historical record. When Kiki was younger, Song Jiwen liked to secretly eat the delicious food that the Poplar Fruit made for Kiki. From then on, Kiki hated him in her heart. Sister Anlin. Kiki clung to Chun Anlin's head and whispered in her ear, can Kiki go home with you to play? Okay, sister welcomes you very much. Chun Anlin laughed and said, welcome what? Poplar Fruit's ears were very sharp, so he asked curiously. Oh, Kiki reached out and covered half of Chun Anlin's mouth. She anxiously said coquettishly, Sister Anlin, don't tell Papa. That won't do. Poplar Fruit pulled a chair over with a smile and said, Kiki, be honest. What are you hiding from Dad again? Kiki pouted for a while, then said shyly, Kiki wants to go to Uncle Mosquito's house to watch TV. What TV? Chun Anlin laughed and said, Kiki, tell Sister, what program do you want to watch? Sister will help you download it on the internet, and you can watch it on the computer. Kiki's eyes lit up. Holding Chun Anlin's hand, she nodded happily and said, Kiki likes to watch Pleasant Goat. Don't. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Anlin, don't listen to her. I'm trying to reduce Kiki's time to watch TV and the computer. Foreign education for children emphasizes that children should participate in more creative and imaginative activities instead of watching TV every day. Before returning to China, Poplar Fruit had communicated with Linda. She was a full-time mother and often attended some children's education classes. She told Poplar Fruit that research showed that if children watched TV for more than 1.5 hours a week, they would learn to play the roles on TV, and their imagination would be hindered. In fact, hands-on games like drawing could stimulate children's creativity and have a good effect on their intellectual development. If Kiki was not too young, Poplar Fruit was prepared to let her play some hands-on games like sewing dolls by herself. Deeply understanding his previous mistakes, Poplar Fruit, as a parent, bought a lot of parenting books from abroad. He read the books and made notes, and then Fong Beibei watched him translate and summarize the main points, urging him to continue working hard to be a qualified father. Chapter 802. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were chatting about each other's recent situation while eating. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were brothers who talked about everything. He and Song Jiwen could freely complain about the troubles caused by the recent media exposure of his life. Although I've tried my best to keep a low profile, sometimes I will be recognized when I go out to buy things. Fortunately, I am not a star who has acted in a big movie, so I am not chased and blocked. Poplar Fruit laughed. Song Jiwen said indifferently, What's the matter? Didn't you cut your hair short now? You might as well deny it and say that you are not the model Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed to Kiki, whose mouth was full of cream, and said, You are wrong. No matter how I pretend to dress up, it can't be helped, because as long as people see Kiki, they will immediately connect me with the one in the newspaper. What's more annoying is that there are students in the school who come to me for autographs, and they also come to Kiki for autographs. Unfortunately, Kiki doesn't know how to write. Haha, Poplar Fruit laughed. It's okay. As long as you don't continue to be in the limelight, no one will pay attention to you in a few days. Song Jiwen waved his hand and said. He knew that Poplar Fruit was the same as him. He was an otaku and lazy guy. Being famous was so troublesome. Poplar Fruit would definitely avoid it like a snake or scorpion. I'm going to participate in a fast game next week. I guess I can't keep a low profile. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly. Forget it. Let's not talk about me. When is your Tai Chi martial arts school going to open? It's not ours. It's in Land's Tai Chi martial arts school. Song Ji-win corrected Poplar Fruit's mistake. Hey, do you want to wash your hands of it? Chun Amlin elbowed him and said, You forgot that in the name of Wenlan Martial Arts School, Wenlan is yours. But you are a shareholder. Song Ji-win protested, but he felt that his momentum was weak. I said to let you be a shareholder. You didn't agree. Chun Amlin glared at him and said, Sister, I am buying a house, okay? I'm not a rich person like Poplar Fruit who can spend a lot of money. In order to be neighbors with him, I have to sell everything I have. Song Ji-win complained. Before going to Bali, Poplar Fruit told Song Ji-win that he was buying a house. This guy was stimulated and shamelessly wanted to buy a house near Poplar Fruit's house to be neighbors with Poplar Fruit. It was not as exaggerated as what Song Ji-win said. His family still had some foundation. After paying 60% of the down payment, Song Ji-win paid 4,000 yuan a month for the rest of the money, so it was not a big deal. Poplar Fruit originally wanted to lend Song Ji-win money in full to buy a house, but this guy was not willing. He said that the accumulation fund was so high that there was no need to waste it. Poplar Fruit thought that he was too proud to lend him money. Mosquito, don't make trouble. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, and Lon is in trouble. Will you leave her alone? And Lon, he's just saying, don't take it to heart. This guy is just stubborn. I know, Chun Anlin said with a smile. She looked at Song Ji-win and said, You could be my part-time CEO. I can give you a salary. Song Ji-win curled his lips in disdain and said, Forget it. You want to hire a CEO for your small martial arts club? The money you earn may not even be enough for your pocket money. Chun Anlin said with a smile, That depends on your level. If you manage it well, I will split the money with you. Chun Anlin was a martial artist and spoke with a heroic spirit. Song Ji-win waved his hand and said, Forget it. I don't need your money. I will help you manage it for free. Anyway, I have nothing to do. But didn't you say that you want to use your own theory to build a new martial arts club? Poplar Fruit watched them bicker with a smile. Chun Amlin waved her hand and said with a domineering smile, No matter how mighty a general is, he still needs a strategist planning. I am the general who opens up new territory. You are the little strategist who helped me come up with plans. I have a new operating theory, and you will help me sort it out. Song Ji-win curled his lips and said, What new theory? Isn't it just using WeChat and Weibo to promote it? Let me tell you, if you only rely on this method, you won't be able to attract customers. Do you think those children who like to play and enjoy freedom will be attracted by your WeChat and Weibo? Song Ji-win said with a smile. Of course, if you invite Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan to help you shoot videos, there might be a chance. That's impossible, Chun Anlin said with dissatisfaction. She was a little discouraged. Then we can invite Brother Yang. Chun Anlin's eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Poplar Fruit and said with some expectation, Brother Yang's skills are so good. If you record a video and send it out, they will definitely worship you. When Chun Anlin mentioned Poplar Fruit, she didn't think of using Poplar Fruit's fame. She only thought of martial arts. No problem, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. If you need my help, just let me know. That's great, Chun Anlin said gratefully. Don't be happy too early. Song Ji-win poured a bucket of cold water on her and said, Your target group is the group of students who use mobile phones a lot, but in fact they don't have the final say. In the end, whether they participate in the Tai Chi training class or not depends on their parents, mainly on their mother's face. Song Ji-win smiled and said, You may not feel this way. The children in the city participate in all kinds of training classes, and there are only a few that they like. Isn't it because their parents force them? Chun Anlin was confused by his words. She asked confusedly, Do you mean that my marketing plan will not work at all? That's not it. Song Ji-win smiled brightly and said, What I mean is that your plan has a premise, and that is, you have to deal with the parents of the children. I have confidence in dealing with the children, but I have no way to deal with the parents. Chun Anlin was so worried that her eyebrows were wrinkled. Song Ji-win stretched out his hand and played with Chun Anlin's slanted eyebrows. Chun Anlin angrily slapped his hand away. He smiled and said, It's okay if you don't have any ideas and confidence. You still have me. Song Ji-win turned his head and looked at Poplar Fruit, who was sitting on the side and was still wolfing down his food. He smiled and said, "It's easy to deal with the parents and grandparents of the children. You just have to understand their interests and hobbies." Lao Kua, tell Lon, what kind of sports do the uncles and aunties like to do? Poplar Fruit picked up a tissue and wiped his mouth. He raised his head and said with a smile, "What else can it be? Let's square dance." This question was really easy to answer. Recently, the square dancing incident had been in the news. Of course, there were more complaints. However, it was undeniable that square dancing had occupied the world of middle-aged and old people. Some time ago, Poplar Fruit called home and heard from his sister that his mother and father went square dancing every day. They even formed a team and prepared to participate in the competition. Little Lin Jie had been led astray by them. In a video sent to him by his sister, little Lin Jie also swayed and danced with his mother. It was really funny. Chapter 803. That's right. Song Ji-win smiled and said, "Square dancing is our entry point." "Are you kidding me?" Chen Amlin glared at him and said discontentedly, "What's square dancing? Do I know how to square dance? You're just saying useless things." "You know Tai Chi, right?" Song Ji-win asked. "If you know Tai Chi, don't you know a few sets of health-preserving boxing techniques? My grandfather practices Tai Chi sword every day." He didn't hold back with Chen Amlin. The two of them always spoke with a little anger. "You want me to teach uncles and aunties Tai Chi?" Chen Amlin was furious with Song Ji-win. She was so angry that she laughed and said, "My Tai Chi is used to kill enemies and defend myself. How can it be compared to your so-called square dancing?" Poplar Fruit quickly mediated. He held down Song Ji-win and smiled at Chen Amlin. "Amlon, don't be angry. Mosquito didn't mean that." "What do you mean that?" Song Ji-win's voice also began to rise. He straightened his neck and said, "I'm teaching her a good method out of kindness. What's with her attitude? If you want to open a martial arts club and make money, you have to put down your high and mighty attitude first." "Mosquito, you're not a child anymore." Poplar Fruit stared at him and scolded. "Why are you throwing a tantrum with a girl? Can't you just explain it to Enlon?" Poplar Fruit smiled at Chen Amlin and said, "Enlon, don't pay attention to his bad temper. In fact, he's doing it for your own good. Think about it. In modern society, how many people want to practice martial arts that no one can beat? Even if they're motivated by TV dramas and martial arts novels, not many people have the perseverance to persevere. After all, pure martial artists like you and me are very few." Chen Amlin bit her lower lip and nodded. She said, "I understand what you mean. In fact, my family often says that a martial arts club needs to be down to earth, but I really can't lift my head and dance with those uncles and aunties. I always feel embarrassed." This was the pure, "I understand the reason." Song Ji-win calmed down at this time. He shook his head and said, "Let me tell you an example. My mom met her too. She's also obsessed with square dancing this year." "I know that." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "My mother was the one who encouraged my mother to dance. She told me something. There was a young man in their line team. He was young, about 25 or 26 years old. She didn't have a high education level either. She graduated from a technical secondary school, but she had a sweet mouth and was willing to practice dancing with him. Not only that, but he also learned from everywhere. After he learned a new dance style, he came back and taught it to my mother. Anyway, my mother especially liked this young man." Song Ji-win smiled and said. Chen Amlin was gradually attracted by Song Ji-win's story. She put her elbow on the table and held her cute baby face with one hand. She looked at Song Ji-win in a daze. This young man is actually a financial manager of a bank. Don't underestimate him. He started off by selling credit cards and worked his way up to this position step by step. Song Ji-win laughed. His main purpose of square dancing is to expand his customer base. Because of trust, many aunties in my mother's line dance team are willing to pay for his financial products. Song Ji-win smiled and said, "Pay attention, he's not a swindler. Aunties nowadays are not that stupid. They can tell if it's for their own good or if it's for their own money." When that young man was promoting financial products, He was sincerely analyzing it with them and choosing financial product for them to make money. The main problem isn't it the same no matter who they buy the financial products from? It's better to buy from this young man who is familiar with them and knows that he has a good heart, Song Jiwen said. Poplar Fruit nodded and smiled. Then isn't his performance super good? Poplar Fruit knew that his godparents lived in a high-end neighborhood. Those aunties who did line dance must be rich. Yes. Song Jiwen smiled and said, just this year, a conservative estimate, he pulled in 30 million. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, he did dig up a gold mine. Haha, to be honest, those aunties and uncles who do line dance are really rich. They have time and money. I don't mean for in-law to rope in these aunties and uncles to cheat money. Song Jiwen explained, I'm just saying that if in-law has a good relationship with the aunties and grandparents near a martial arts center, then through the attractiveness of our martial arts center, they will be very willing to send their children to study here. Moreover, if anyone mentions Wenlan Martial Arts Center, someone will immediately say, oh, isn't it opened by that beautiful and well-behaved little girl? I've seen her before. She's a young master who really knows Kung Fu. It's definitely right to ask her to learn Tai Chi. Song Jiwen smiled. Shin Amlin said hesitantly, but I don't know how to do it. She understood the psychological needs of children of her age or younger. She was completely confused about the older aunties and uncles. It's okay. Poplar Fruit patted Song Jiwen's shoulder and said with a smile, Mosquito will help you. This guy has the sweetest mouth. He's the best at deceiving aunties and uncles. Song Jiwen glanced at Poplar Fruit, who had no sense of loyalty, and pushed him into the fire pit, but he didn't refute. He nodded and said, yes, don't worry. I'll give you some advice. Actually, I had this idea when we were choosing the location. Also, I can take you to ask my mother. She dances line dance every day. She can teach you how to get into this group. Shin Amlin's face turned red. She stammered and did not say anything. Poplar Fruit said excitedly, I can help too. Recently, I've been studying how to create my own martial arts. Later, I'll find some health-preserving boxing to study and see if I can combine it with Tai Chi to create an easy-to-learn health-preserving Kung Fu. After returning, he did spend some time on martial arts. Kiki's Bin Fist was a semi-finished product. Poplar Fruit wanted to further improve it and create a simple self-defense Kung Fu. Then, he would teach it to the children in Xiong Village. Song Jiwen nodded and said, yes. Indeed, we should prepare for both sides. In a martial arts center, we will teach real Kung Fu. Outside, we will teach the uncles and aunties some easy-to-learn health-preserving Kung Fu. Laogua, can you see if you can combine it with square dancing? If this Kung Fu has a clear sense of rhythm and toxicity, it'll be even better, Song Jiwen said with a smile. How did the hottest ethnic style line dance become so popular? Isn't it because their rhythm is too good? Isn't that too difficult? Chun Amlin felt injustice for Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile, I can only say that I'll try my best. For a guy like him who was born unable to find the rhythm, it was almost impossible for him to integrate the rhythm of line dance into his newly created Kung Fu. However, Poplar Fruit still agreed. He was thinking that when the time came, he would bring Fong Bei Bei, who sang very well, to study it together. Chapter 804. There was good news from the United States. The marketing team, led by Pang Yu's, had a smooth negotiation with Amazon. Amazon was very happy that their publishing house was willing to use their platform to publish this year's Nobel Prize in Literature winner's novel. They promised to provide a lot of recommendation resources. However, Pang Yu's aunt was still not satisfied. She did not make a move and continued to negotiate. She wanted to get more promises that would help the publishing house's future development. This had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. He was very happy today because Fong Bei Bei had finally returned from home. Poplar Fruit still drove to pick up his girlfriend. This time, because Fong Bei Bei's mother sent Fong Bei Bei to the bus, Poplar Fruit did not wait for her near her home. Instead, he drove to the bus stop in front. After Fong Bei Bei got on the bus, she got out at the next stop. Sister Bei Bei, Papa, Sister Bei Bei is over there. Kiki and Goldie were playing in the back of the car. Suddenly, Goldie barked twice. Kiki subconsciously raised her head to look out of the car. She happily patted the car window and barked at her father in front. Poplar Fruit had been waiting for a long time. He was scrolling through Weibo with his phone. Recently, he had gained a lot of fans on Weibo, and there were all kinds of comments. Poplar Fruit simply turned off the notifications for unfollowed people. He only opened the comment section to take a look when he was interested. Recently, he had been following Old Master Mo Yan's Weibo. Old Master Mo Yan rarely posted on Weibo. Basically, he did not appear on Weibo for a year. Yesterday, he posted, "Thank you to my friends on Weibo for your affirmation of me, and thank you for your criticism." Poplar Fruit knew what was going on. Recently, the public opinion was divided into two groups. One group supported him and said that he was the pride of the people. The other group did not even read the book and listen to other people's nonsense. They scolded Old Master Mo Yan's works for being vulgar. Poplar Fruit reposted Old Master Mo Yan's Weibo. However, he did not comment on it. Instead, he said with emotion, "Only real gold can stand the test of time." Teacher Mo Yan has devoted himself to literature for nearly 40 years. He has finally won the recognition of the world. We should congratulate him. Hearing Kiki scream, Poplar Fruit put away his phone and looked out of the window. He saw Fong Bei standing at the bus stop and looking around, trying to find him. Among the crowd, Poplar Fruit only saw the pretty Fong Bei. Today, she was wearing a slim black t-shirt with long sleeves. However, the sleeves were rolled up to her elbows, revealing her fair arms. She was wearing a pair of black pencil jeans. Her slim legs were not even as thick as Poplar Fruit's forearms. Seeing Fong Bei, Poplar Fruit hurriedly opened the car door and got off. He walked up to her and took the two big bags from her with a smile. However, Fong Bei only called out to him and then quickly ran in the direction of the car. She carried Chi-Chi, who had slipped out of the car at some point in time. Hee. Kiki grinned happily. Fong Bei frowned and patted Kiki's, but gently. She looked at Poplar Fruit with blame and said, "Uncle, how can you be so careless? You didn't close the car door properly and got off the car." Kiki ran out. If you weren't careful, what should we do?" Fong Bei was really angry at Poplar Fruit. It was indeed dangerous just now. Kiki opened the car door herself and stepped on the gold to jump off the car. Fong Bei caught her on the sidewalk on the side of the road. After all, there were also cars flying around on the sidewalk in China. Poplar Fruit sincerely accepted Fong Bei's lesson. He was also overjoyed when he saw Fong Bei and forgot to lock the car door before picking her up. He didn't expect that Kiki, who had never shown it before, had learned how to open the car door. However, thinking about Poplar Fruit, he understood. As early as half a year ago, Kiki knew how to open the door. What was so difficult about learning how to open the car door? It seemed like he really had to be careful of Kiki in the future. Being too smart wasn't necessarily a good thing. Kiki didn't have the awareness of danger like an adult. Back in the car, the unpleasant things were swept away. Fong Bei sat in the passenger seat happily. She played with the bags in her hands and said to Poplar Fruit, "Uncle, this time my mom asked me to bring a lot of delicious food. Originally, I said that I was going to give it to my roommate, but now that my roommate is you, you're in luck." Poplar Fruit reached over, pulled the seatbelt, and intimately fastened Fong Bei's seatbelt. He smiled and said, "Aren't you going to leave some for your former roommate?" When Shan saw her the day before yesterday, she was still nagging you to bring some delicious food back for her. "Oomph." Fong Bei expressed her disdain for a foodie best friend. She smiled and said, "No, I'll take half of it back to the dormitory for them to eat. By the way, did I tell you? Yanni is in love again. It's normal for her to be in love." Poplar Fruit was driving and chatting with Fong Bei. "She's also a great beauty. Although she's not as beautiful as you, there must be a lot of boys chasing after her. It's not the boys at school. I heard from Sister Hua that he seems to be a member of society, and he's almost 30 years old." Fong Bei said worriedly. "Yanni is also moving out." Poplar Fruit was silent for a moment, then comforted her. "Wu Yanni has made her own decision. and she can only bear the risks. We can't interfere. I know, but I'm afraid that she's thinking about it because she saw me move out. Forget it. Let's not talk about her. Fong Beibei waved her hand and said. She found a plastic box from the bag and opened the lid. Inside it were strawberries that had been washed clean. Fong Beibei smiled and handed one to Kiki, who was sitting in the back. Then she took out another one and stuffed it into Poplar Fruit's mouth. Then she looked at Poplar Fruit's handsome face and saw him eating with his mouth full. She smiled and asked, "Is it delicious?" "I picked and washed it myself. It's so sweet." Poplar Fruit smiled and praised. "You should eat it too. Where did you pick it?" "There's some in my uncle's field." Fong Beibei didn't eat it herself, but when she heard Poplar Fruit say that it was delicious, her eyes curved into beautiful crescents. She took out another one and fed it to Poplar Fruit's mouth. "What other delicious food did you take?" "I smell spicy." Poplar Fruit smelled a strong fragrance and asked curiously. "There's also chestnuts and peanuts." "Spicy, that's crayfish." Fong Beibei happily opened the lid of a food container, revealing the bright red and beautiful crayfish inside. They were all stir-fried. She even brought it to Poplar Fruit's nose and let Poplar Fruit smell it. "Does it smell good?" Poplar Fruit, of course, nodded and praised. "It smells good. Your mother's cooking is very good. The crayfish is very delicious." As a non-professional chef, he could smell the heat of this dish. "Then I'll keep this. When we go back, I'll give it to you and Kiki to eat." Fong Beibei happily closed the lid. "Kiki doesn't eat spicy food. Have you forgotten?" Poplar Fruit reminded. At this time, Kiki's muffled voice came from the back seat. No, Kiki doesn't want spicy food." It turned out that the little girl immediately covered her mouth and nose when she smelled the spicy food. Chapter 805. With a woman in the house, the atmosphere was much better. After picking up Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit rolled up his sleeves and ran to the kitchen to wash the vegetables that he had bought earlier. Fong Beibei wanted to help him, but Poplar Fruit said that it was a happy occasion for her to come back today, so he didn't want her to be tired. Thus, he chased her to the living room to play with Kiki. The kitchen was steaming. Poplar Fruit looked outside and saw the smiles on their faces. He felt extremely happy. Even when he became famous in Bali, and almost everyone revolved around him, he was not as happy as he was today. In order to welcome Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit cooked 5 dishes, including 3 meat and 2 vegetable dishes. In addition, there was a pot of fish head soup that was as fragrant as milk. Today's dinner could be said to be a little too sumptuous. After all, including Kiki, there were only 2.5 of them. "Oh," Fong Beibei imitated Kiki's coquettish nasal voice. She held onto the chair and said to Poplar Fruit, "Uncle, are you trying to fatten me up? You eat fish and meat every day at home, but you still cook so many dishes when you come back." "Yes, I'll fatten you up." Poplar Fruit stood in front of Fong Beibei. He placed his hands on Fong Beibei's bony shoulder blades and gently stroked them. He smiled and said, "You're so beautiful. If I don't fatten you up, I won't be at ease." Fong Beibei hadn't responded yet. Kiki stood on the chair and waved with one hand. She touched her round belly with the other hand and said happily, "Kiki is also very beautiful." Papa said that Kiki needs to eat until she's full and fat so that she can grow up quickly. Although the logic seemed to be similar, in fact, they were not talking about the same thing. Fong Beibei giggled. She hugged Kiki, but her right hand secretly pinched Poplar Fruit's waist and said, "Sister Beibei doesn't want to get fat. Girls don't look good when they get fat." Then what should we do?" Kiki hesitantly looked at the fragrant fish soup that her father had scooped out of her small bowl on the table. On one hand, it was an irresistible delicacy. On the other hand, Kiki cared a lot about her beauty. She really didn't know how to choose. Seeing Kiki holding her cheeks and sighing like an adult, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Sister Beibei lied to you. No matter how much Kiki ate, she wouldn't get fat. Besides, didn't Kiki exercise with her father in the morning? As long as she works hard, Kiki will also be beautiful." Fong Beibei giggled. What are you laughing at? Poplar Fruit pinched Fong Bei's nose and said with a smile, You're just scaring Kiki. I'm serious. Also, let's exercise together in the morning, okay? Don't sit all the time. It's great to run in the morning, breathe in the fresh air, and watch the sunrise. But you get up so early every day. Fong Bei pouted and shook off Poplar Fruit's big hand. She said, I can't do that. I'll be sleepy if I don't get enough sleep. You go to bed before 11:30 p.m. and get up at 6:30 a.m. That way, you'll get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. You'll sleep for another hour at noon. That's enough. Poplar Fruit calculated a scientific schedule for Fong Bei. You'll find that your mental state is getting better and better after a few days. What about you? Don't you get up at 4 o'clock? Fong Bei asked. She had lived with Poplar Fruit for so long, so she knew that Poplar Fruit was different from ordinary people. He only needed 3 hours of sleep a day. Poplar Fruit smiled. He took Kiki over and put her on her special chair so that Fong Bei could have her soup and eat. He said, After I came back, I adjusted my schedule. I'll sleep a little later at night, and then I'll wake up with you in the morning. Fong Bei blushed when she saw Poplar Fruit's sparkling eyes. She remembered that Poplar Fruit said that Poplar Fruit thought that the happiest thing was when two people opened their eyes at the same time facing the morning sun and saw each other's warm smile at first sight. Chapter 45. The fish soup was very fragrant and sweet, but it was not as sweet as the inner happiness. In Poplar Fruit's house, Goldie's food had always been much better than other people's dogs. Poplar Fruit always gave it delicious food early, instead of waiting until the end of the meal to give it leftovers. Goldie also ate in the dining room. Of course, Poplar Fruit spread out a piece of newspaper for it to eat. This guy was quite well-behaved when eating and did not spread the newspaper everywhere. Not only that, Fong Bei also picked up some bones for Goldie to eat. It did not care if its master had eaten it before. Anyway, the taste of the bones was a delicacy to it. Kiki, give it to me too. Seeing Fong Bei turn around, squat down, and come back again, Chi-Chi also wanted to join in the fun. She pressed down on her father's hand, remotely controlled her little spoon, and scooped out a spoonful of rice from her little bowl. However, even though Poplar Fruit's hand was very steady, Kiki kept grabbing, and some of the rice was scattered outside. Don't scatter the food. Poplar Fruit frowned and used his hand to push the scattered rice to the side. He would continue to clean it up later. However, her father's expression did not scare Kiki. She was still restless and wanted to look at Goldie. Goldie said, Thank you, Kiki. Fong Bei said with a smile, but Goldie also said that it has enough food. You don't have to trouble Kiki. Okay. Kiki moved her small butt, sat properly, and let go of her father's hand. Fong Bei still had a way. In the evening, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei sat on the sofa and used the iPad to watch variety shows and chat. When they talked about the few days that Fong Bei had been home, Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, Oh yeah, after you went back, did your father mention that matter again? Fong Bei curled her lips and said helplessly, Yes. It was so annoying. Originally, my parents didn't want to talk about me, but Uncle and his family came over for dinner and talked about my news at the dinner table. Then, my father was unhappy. Did he scold you? Poplar Fruit put his hand on Fong Bei's shoulder to comfort her. He didn't scold me. Fong Bei pouted and said with a little grievance. He said that girls should know how to love themselves outside and not be used by others. If your reputation is ruined, you won't be able to get married in the future. Poplar Fruit smiled and patted his chest and said, How can you not be able to get married? You can tell your father that you don't have to worry about marriage at all. Poplar Fruit has been waiting there for a long time, waiting to marry your daughter. Who said I'm going to marry you? Fong Bei shyly pushed Poplar Fruit's chest and smiled. If I really told him, then my father would definitely come after you with a broom. No way. I think I should be quite popular with father-in-law. Poplar Fruit smiled. Don't say that. Fong Bei straightened up and grabbed Poplar Fruit's mouth. She looked into Poplar Fruit's eyes. Although she was smiling, there was still some worry in her eyes. Poplar Fruit understood that Fong Bei had always been worried that her father wouldn't be able to tolerate the fact that she had a daughter. Therefore, she didn't know how to hide her relationship with Poplar Fruit. "Baby, don't be afraid." Poplar Fruit gently kissed Fong Bei's mouth and said, "You have me. No matter how difficult the future is, I will try my best to get your family's approval." Chapter 806. Poplar Fruit didn't expect such a busy man like Uncle Sukai and Uncle Jean to come looking for him. Moreover, they were meeting at a place as classy as a cafe. "This is your sister-in-law's cafe." Uncle Jean was holding a cup of hot cappuccino as he chatted with Poplar Fruit while leaning against the fence of the children's play area. "My sister-in-law is really good at business," Poplar Fruit praised. He was quite happy to see Kiki happily playing with the other customers' children in the play area. Uncle Jin's cafe was located in the most luxurious and upscale CBD of Yangqing. It occupied a large area and was divided into 2 floors. Even in this bustling and competitive upscale business district, Uncle Jin's cafe was comparable to Starbucks and Shangdao, which had been famous for a long time. That was because Uncle Jin's cafe had a warm theme. Customers could leisurely enjoy the quiet time in the cafe. They could also enjoy a loving couple's world. On the 2nd floor, Uncle Jean had thoughtfully set up a children's play area so that parents who worked hard to take care of their children could have a break in the cafe. That was because their children could play to their heart's content in the children's play area. They didn't need to be in a hurry to take care of them. It was similar to fast food restaurants like Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's. However, Uncle Jin's cafe was more meticulous and considerate. It was more in line with Chinese habits. "Hee, come more often when you're free. I'll ask my sister-in-law to waive the bill for you." Uncle Jean patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and smiled. He pulled Poplar Fruit back to his seat. This time, he didn't ask Poplar Fruit out just for coffee. He had something important to discuss with Poplar Fruit. "Have you heard about the Nobel Prize in Literature?" Uncle Jean asked while sipping his coffee. Poplar Fruit smiled. This matter was actually related to him and Uncle Jean. Back then, Poplar Fruit met Mo Yin, who was Uncle Jin's mentor. "Of course, Teacher Mo called me that morning to tell me," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Now, he is a banner of our country's literary world." Uncle Jean nodded and said, "Yes, I was also shocked when I heard the news. To tell you the truth, at the beginning of the year, I was very excited when I met that Swede with you. But deep down, I still thought that Mr. Mo Yin was just there to accompany us. I didn't have much hope." Who wasn't like that? The country had been yearning for a Nobel Prize for so many years, but hadn't it come to nothing every year? Poplar Fruit couldn't believe it at first. He was afraid that all his efforts would be in vain. But Mr. Mo Yin really got the award. Uncle Jean sighed and said, "You have no idea how excited the whole country is. We in the education field are still discussing whether we should include Mr. Mo Yan's essay in our textbooks." "That's impossible, right?" Poplar Fruit laughed. Although Uncle Jean was his mentor, Poplar Fruit still had basic judgment. His grandpa's books were more realistic, unlike Lu Xun's books, which talked about the righteousness of the country and read about red sorghum. Such a heavy novel wasn't suitable for primary and secondary school students. "Yes," Uncle Jean smiled and said, "but this is their problem. It has nothing to do with me. When I saw the news, I thought of you and thought that you're going to be rich. You're Mr. Mo Yan's chief translator." "No, I'm not the chief translator." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said with a smile, "I'm just one of the many translators. Anyway, you've contributed a lot." Uncle Jean said, "I asked you to come here today to talk to you about something else. In the past 2 years, the education field in Guangdong province has been mediocre. We didn't get any awards in the country. You might not know this since you're in school, but as the leaders of the education department, we're under a lot of pressure." Uncle Jean said with a bitter smile, "We can't raise our heads without any awards year after year." Poplar Fruit had an ominous feeling. He looked at Uncle Jean nervously. "When I saw the news about Mr. Mo Yin, the first person I thought of was you." Uncle Jean looked at him with bright eyes and said, "Later, I checked on the internet and found that I was really ignorant. You're already a celebrity. That's all in the past. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Uncle Gene, you know me. You can choose to remain silent, but you can't deny the glory you've achieved. Uncle Jin's eyes flashed with a trace of slyness. He smiled and said, the first male model in the country. Your performance at the Bali Fashion Week shocked the world. You also know famous people like Beckham and Leanne. You even designed a card game that's said to be popular all over the world. Let me correct you. Poplar Fruit said, my girlfriend and I designed that game together, and we only designed the first version. It was Blizzard that perfected it and carried it forward. We didn't play a big role in it, as you said. Huh. Uncle Gene waved his hand and said, that's not important. I haven't finished yet. Before I came to you, I contacted Higashiyama University and got to know you better. You're fluent in 13 foreign languages, and you're currently studying for your master's degree. In fact, you've already started to work as a teaching assistant. So I want to ask you something. Uncle Gene knocked on the table and said with a smile, Poplar Fruit, where can I find another college student as awesome as you? Uncle Gene even cursed. It was obvious that he admired Poplar Fruit very much. Ha ha. Poplar Fruit laughed embarrassedly. He scratched his head. How could he praise himself? Poplar Fruit knew that Uncle Gene didn't just want to praise himself. He asked embarrassedly, Uncle Gene, just tell me directly. What do you need me to do? I don't need you to do anything. Uncle Gene smiled and took a sip of coffee. Poplar Fruit was confused by him. And then he said, I just want to inform you. Wait for next year's award. As for other things, our office will communicate with your university. Award? What award? Poplar Fruit was really puzzled. The top 10 college students in the country. Uncle Gene laughed and said, don't even think about the top 10 outstanding young people. None of them are young people. They're all old men in their 40s or 50s. Poplar Fruit also wanted to win awards. However, what he wanted was not this kind of fame, but professional awards such as the Nobel Prize, the Northern Light Literary Translation Prize, and so on. I know you're absent-minded, but don't be unhappy. Uncle Gene knocked on the table and said with a smile, winning an award is not a big deal for you. Why are you hesitating? Besides, after you win an award, everything you do in the future will be much smoother. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. The long-distance education that he had been working hard on flashed in his mind. However, before he had time to think about it, Poplar Fruit heard noises coming from the children's play area. Among them, there was Kiki's crying. Chapter 807. The children's play area was already quite noisy, and now that the children were crying in unison, it was even noisier. Fortunately, the sound-absorbing material on the second floor was quite good, so it didn't affect the elegant guests in other places. However, Poplar Fruit, who was drinking coffee in the same area, immediately caught the sound of Kiki crying. Kiki rarely cried, and most of the time, when she cried in front of Poplar Fruit, it was just to act coquettishly. Now, her crying immediately affected Poplar Fruit's heart. Uncle Gene was puzzled and turned his head to look at the direction of the commotion. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past him. When he turned back, Poplar Fruit had already hurriedly pushed away his chair and rushed to the children's play area. The place was already in a mess. A group of children raised their heads and cried loudly. Several parents hurriedly surrounded their children, comforting them while asking what had happened. Poplar Fruit immediately saw Kiki, who was standing in the middle, holding her little hands and crying. Although there was a small door around the corner, Poplar Fruit was burning with anxiety. He jumped over the fence. He didn't know that his jump was like an agile Ultraman. When he landed, several little boys were stunned and forgot to cry for a moment. Poplar Fruit ran to Kiki's side, squatted down, and hugged Kiki in his arms. He stroked Kiki's little head and asked, Kiki, what's wrong? Don't cry, Daddy is here. Woo-woo. Kiki seemed to have found her backbone. She hugged her daddy's neck and cried even louder. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit didn't know what had happened. He could only observe Kiki. He looked at Kiki's face and small arms and legs. He didn't see any injuries, so she probably didn't bump into anything. Then why was she crying like this? Before Poplar Fruit could ask, a fat woman, mixed with a nauseating strong fragrance, walked over with a fat child. The fat child was also crying. One of his hands was held by his mother, but the other hand was pointing at Kiki. Is it her? Is it her? Can you say something? The fat woman shouted with a hoarse voice and pointed her fat finger at Kiki. I say, big sister, why are you shouting here? Can't you talk nicely? Poplar Fruit frowned and used his body to block the saliva that was aimed at Kiki. Talk nicely? The fat woman was aggressive. She rushed over and wanted to grab Poplar Fruit's hair and push it away. But with Poplar Fruit's skills, how could she succeed? Poplar Fruit held Kiki, and with a twist of his feet, his body suddenly disappeared in front of the fat woman's eyes. The fat woman staggered and almost fell. When she steadied herself, Poplar Fruit stood by the side, looked at her coldly, and said, Big sister, please respect yourself. If you have something to say, say it. If you don't touch me. The children and parents in the children's play area who were crying just now dispersed, leaving the center where Poplar Fruit and the others were fighting. However, they didn't leave, but stood at the side and watched in confusion. So tall, someone couldn't help but exclaim. When Poplar Fruit squatted down, the fat woman didn't notice, but now that Poplar Fruit stood up, she found that she had to look up at Poplar Fruit, and her neck had to be raised high. Poplar Fruit's eyes made her feel a little timid. However, in the end, she still lived like a princess. She felt that her mental state was a little embarrassing. The fat woman waved her arms like waves and shouted crazily. You're still asking me why? Isn't it because you, a loser, allowed you to hit my son? She was cursing, and vulgar Cantonese poured out like garbage. Hearing this, many parents frowned and covered their children's ears. Poplar Fruit also covered Kiki's ears and said unhappily, Miss, watch your mouth. The way he addressed her had changed, and Poplar Fruit was already very impatient with her. Hearing the anger in Poplar Fruit's tone, the fat woman also exploded like a barrel of gunpowder. She pointed at Poplar Fruit and cursed, and her words were very unpleasant. It was so annoying that Poplar Fruit really wanted to use tape to seal her mouth, but he only used his arms to cover Kiki's ears so that she wouldn't be polluted by this garbage. Please don't be unreasonable. Poplar Fruit frowned, and while she was panting, he said, Why do you say that my daughter hit your child? God's will. Come here. The fat woman pulled her son over, pointed at his left eye, and said angrily, Evidence. I'll give you evidence. Poplar Fruit saw that her son's left eye was a little red, not from crying, but as if he had been punched. But was this really done by Kiki? Poplar Fruit knew that although his daughter was more playful and lively, but in reality, this little fellow was very kind-hearted. There were so many brats in Xiong village who fought every day, and Kiki was always the one who ran over to mediate. God's will, tell me who hit you. The fat woman pulled her son, and her action was very big. Luckily, her son was also chubby, otherwise he would have fallen down. It's her. Mummy, help me hit her. That fat boy called God's will also thickened his neck and pointed at Kiki as he shouted. He looked at Kiki's eyes with some fear, and even tears seemed to be swirling in his eyes. The fat woman stood there arrogantly and even rolled up her sleeves. Poplar Fruit glanced at her and ignored them. He gently lifted Kiki's tear-stained bangs and asked softly, Kiki, come, tell Daddy, why are you crying? Kiki sobbed and choked with sobs, Big brother is crying. Then why is Big brother crying? Poplar Fruit understood. Perhaps, like other children, Kiki saw others crying sadly, and she was infected by it. Because Kiki was careless and accidentally hit Big brother. Sob, 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 sob. Kiki cried sadly again. Look. The fat woman was very proud, and she walked up arrogantly, pointing at Kiki's face and saying, One look and I can tell that you are a vixen now, and a vixen in the future. It must be that our family's God's will is unwilling to play with her, and is still pestering her. I'll beat you to death. Not only did she scold her, she even touched her. Poplar Fruit's face darkened, and he reached out to press on the fat woman's face and pushed her to the side and roared like a bolt from the blue. Get lost. Is it my daughter's fault? This is not conclusive yet. Poplar Fruit said angrily, but no matter who is right or wrong, the adults should take responsibility for the children. Don't point your pig hand at my daughter. Chapter 808. How strong was Poplar Fruit's aura? Perhaps it was a little lacking in words. He did not even use the murderous aura that he had learned from Shionkahu. With just a glare, the fat woman felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. She was so scared that she did not dare to move. At this time, Poplar Fruit finally had a little peace. He comforted Kiki's little hand and asked softly, "Kiki, tell Daddy, why did you accidentally hit your brother's eye just now?" No matter what others said, Poplar Fruit chose to believe Kiki first because he knew that Kiki would not lie to Daddy. If she said that it was an accident, it must be an accident. Kiki was so pure and kind. How could she hurt others? Kiki had been frightened by the fat woman just now. Fortunately, Daddy stepped forward and protected Kiki like an indomitable hero. Only then did her emotions calm down. "Daddy woo." Kiki choked and said, "Brother hit Kiki with a ball." Kiki doesn't want. As if she had stepped on electric wire, the fat woman jumped up and pointed at Kiki and scolded her again. "You little bitch, don't frame others. How can my son hit people with a ball? My Tiani is the most obedient child in the world." Woo-woo. Kiki was frightened by her and cried again. At this moment, a little boy by the side suddenly pointed at the fat boy called Tiani and shouted, "He's the one who smashed it. He's always bullying people. He's always hitting people. It's so annoying. No one likes to play with him." The little boy who spoke up was at least 6 years old. He was a little older than the fat boy called Tiani. He was not afraid and stood up with his chest puffed out. However, he was immediately pulled back by his mother. "What are you talking about? No one likes to play with my child." The fat woman jumped and shouted. She pointed at the little boy and scolded him again, scolding his mother until her face turned ashen. I said, "Can you stop talking nonsense?" Poplar Fruit pulled her away but did not let her fall. However, this woman was very shameless. She deliberately took a few steps back and then fell on all fours. She even hit the ground and shouted, "You hit me! You hit me! Come on, even if you're pretending to fall, can you fall properly? Even the national football team is not as embarrassing as you." Not only did Poplar Fruit see it, the crowd was also speechless. The matter still had to be resolved. Yang would no longer pay attention to this crazy woman. He carried Chi-Chi and walked to the side of the fat boy. "Kiki," Poplar Fruit wiped his daughter's tears and said gently, "Although you accidentally hit your brother, it's still wrong to hit people. Let's apologize to your brother, okay?" Poplar Fruit wanted Kiki to understand that even if other people were rude and unreasonable, she still had to be a moral person. It was not good to hit people. Knowing one's mistake was a good child. Chi-Chi nodded while choking with sobs. Poplar Fruit squatted down with Kiki in his arms and let her stand in front of the fat boy. The fat boy called Tiani was a little scared by Poplar Fruit and did not dare to move. He could only look at his mother for help. However, his mother was still throwing a tantrum on the ground. "Come, Kiki." Poplar Fruit pointed. Chi-Chi pursed her lips, sniffled, and her beautiful eyelashes were covered with sparkling and translucent dewdrops. She obediently walked up and took her father's hand. She raised her head and said with a sobbing tone, "Brother, I'm sorry. Kiki didn't do it on purpose." "Yes, that's right. Tiani, I know I was wrong. You have to forgive me." Poplar Fruit turned his head and smiled at the fat boy. Actually, she was just a child. How bad could she be? Tiani might have some bad habits from his mother, but after listening to Poplar Fruit's persuasion, he was a little moved. The surrounding parents and children looked at Poplar Fruit with admiration. They felt that he was a gentle father. They were also looking forward to a good ending. After all, in front of an innocent child, everything should be beautiful and not ugly. However, that disgusting voice came again. That fat woman was throwing a tantrum on the ground. In fact, no one was willing to look at her. Those who were able to come to this cafe were all reasonable intellectuals. She saw that throwing a tantrum had no effect, so she climbed up and threw herself in front of Kiki and her son. Saying sorry is useful. Then what do we need the police for? That fat woman shouted with her sharp teeth. What do you want? Poplar Fruit originally wanted to keep the peace and let the children have less disputes and more friendship. However, he did not expect this woman to be so shameless and savage. Poplar Fruit pulled Kiki into his protective circle and said to her with a sullen face, "Say it. How much do you want?" Poplar Fruit roughly understood the situation. It might not be his daughter's fault, or the fault might not even be Kiki's fault. However, Kiki might have been forced into a corner. Under conditioned reflex, she used the stupid punch that he had taught her. Although Kiki was not even 2 years old and was no different from a little kid, her strength was inherited from her father. If she was forced into a corner, it would be very painful to hit someone. Therefore, if the fat woman was not too much, Poplar Fruit did not mind paying some money for her son's treatment. However, he did not expect that Poplar Fruit's words would provoke her. The fat woman jumped up and pointed at Poplar Fruit's face. She scolded, "Who cares about your stinky money? I can go out and wash my feet casually, and I can earn more than you working. Look at this bag, it's LV. Look at this chain, it's made of 24K pure gold." The surrounding crowd could not help but laugh coldly. Poplar Fruit leaned back slightly and avoided her sharp edge. He stared at her in annoyance and asked, "Then what do you want? I've already apologized, and I'm willing to fork out the money, but you're still unwilling to forgive me. How can this be resolved? Tell me." If Poplar Fruit could scare her just now, at this moment, because Poplar Fruit could back off, the fat woman mistakenly thought that Poplar Fruit was really afraid of her. The fat woman crossed her arms in front of her chest and laughed coldly. The tip of her foot shook as she stared at Poplar Fruit and said, "What should we do? According to our Wei family's rules, whoever hits our family's tiani will have to be hit back by our family's tiani." Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone stared at this woman with their mouths agape. They did not expect her to be so unreasonable and perverted. The chubby little boy lowered his head under the disdainful gazes of the crowd. He wanted to step back in fear, but his mother grabbed his arm. "Why are you running? Whoever hit you, hit them back fiercely for your mother, so that they won't dare to bully you again." The fat woman put one hand on her waist and scolded her child as she spat saliva. Chapter 809. In the face of such a shameless fat woman, Poplar Fruit was so angry that he laughed. He stood in front of Kiki like a towering mountain, looking at his unmoving but gradually tightening sleeves. One could see the agitation in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that it was a woman and a child, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have wanted to talk nonsense with her. He would have knocked her down with a punch and then walked away coolly. "Madam." Poplar Fruit paused and enunciated clearly. He looked down at the fat woman, snorted, and said, "Until now, you still think you're right? Oh, the lackey you taught beat up my son. Isn't it me or you who's right?" The fat woman was not afraid at all as she retorted. She had never experienced a life-and-death battle like Poplar Fruit. She had been flattered by the people around her in the city and had long forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Poplar Fruit said in a deep voice, "You've repeatedly spoken rudely. So many people here have seen it. I've repeatedly backed down. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, I just don't want to argue in front of the child. If we really want to calculate, my child accidentally hit your son because your son threw the ball to her. Forget it. I'm not afraid of you." The fat woman threw a tantrum. She shook her wavy hair and looked at the onlookers, shouting, "Look, his daughter hit my son, and now he's not admitting it. He even said that my son hit his daughter. Is there such a shameless person in the world?" "Yes, it's you." The onlookers didn't say anything and just looked at her with disdain. Sometimes they really felt that talking to such a woman would make them disgusted. Really, Poplar Fruit also felt the same. He was too lazy to argue with the fat woman. And looking at the situation, it was impossible to settle it privately. If she hit Kiki, would Poplar Fruit be willing to settle it privately? Looking back, he happened to see Uncle Gene walking up to them. Poplar Fruit asked, "Uncle Gene, what do you think? Why don't we just call the police and let the police solve it? If the police can't solve it, We'll let the court judge it. Poplar Fruit was furious. He no longer had the patience to reason with this unreasonable fat woman. If they weren't in the uncle's shop, Poplar Fruit would have done so long ago. That was why he asked Uncle Gene out of politeness. Uncle Gene smiled and waved his hand. No need. This matter is easy to solve. Before he could finish, the fat woman jumped out and scolded. If you want to find the police, then go find the police. You think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, our old way also knows quite a few police officers. When the time comes, you'll still be in big trouble. Uncle Gene coldly glanced at the fat woman and waved his hand. A waiter turned on the LCD TV on the sidewall that was playing advertisements. The TV showed a video surveillance interface. Someone exclaimed, "Wasn't this the video of the children's play area?" It turned out that the uncle didn't show up. Not because he didn't want to, but because he asked the waiter to take him to the surveillance room. As the boss, it was easy for him to find the surveillance video just now. I have the whole process of what happened just now. Are you sure you want to see it? Uncle Gene held the remote control and pointed at the fat woman. Let's see it. I'm not afraid of you. The fat woman shouted. She was already a little guilty, but she still insisted on shouting. In the end, she even added, "It must be this little bitch who hit my son." Then let's watch the video. Uncle Gene smiled faintly and clicked on a video. The video was changed to a very early time. At that time, Kiki had just walked into the play area and was happily greeting the other children, wanting to play with them. Not long after, the little fat boy was seen being carried in by his mother. As soon as he came in, he jumped up and down like Sun Wukong, causing chaos in the play area. What's wrong with this? Children just like to play around. The fat woman mumbled. After a while, it was not just chaos. The children's play area could be said to be in chaos. The little fat boy took out a small plastic ball from the small pool and chased the other children around to throw it. The children here were more docile. When they saw that they were not as big as him, they would avoid him. At this time, the fat woman's figure appeared in the video. She stood outside the fence and seemed to be applauding for her child. Your own child is beating people, and you're still complaining. A male parent couldn't help but scold. His son was also one of the children being chased. Didn't he not hit? The fat woman turned her head and scolded. It's only counted if he hit, isn't it? The male parent rolled up his sleeves and said angrily. It looked like he was going to start a fight at any moment. This little ball will hurt if you hit it? The fat woman shouted fearlessly. It's none of your business. Get lost and mind your own business. Fuck you. The male parent was enraged. If it weren't for his wife holding him back, he would have rushed over to beat the woman up. Don't quarrel. Let's continue watching. Uncle Jin's voice interrupted and attracted everyone's attention back to the screen. They saw that the little fat boy was tired from chasing. He took 2 breaths and went back to the pool to reload the cannonball and rush back. This time, he purposely caused trouble for my daughter, causing a group of my daughter's children to scream and run away. The little fat boy seemed to be very proud. He stood there laughing and throwing the balls around. Everyone saw that on the screen. The super cute Kiki bravely walked over and seemed to be persuading him. The little fat boy shouted something at Kiki and turned around to leave. That's it. Everyone had doubts in their hearts. They thought that things shouldn't have ended like this. In the end, the situation immediately took a turn for the worse. Because the little fat boy had run out of small balls in his hands, he ran to the small pond and took a few more before rushing over and throwing them at Chi-Chi. Huff, huff. Poplar Fruit saw that his daughter was being bullied. His eyes turned red and he panted like a cow. He was already filled with anger. They could see that Kiki was being hit by the little fat boy's balls. She used her left arm to block her face and waved her right arm to balance her body to avoid him. The little fat boy seemed to be getting more and more excited. He even ran in front of Kiki and threw the ball at her head. Looking at the extent of his arm waving, it was very strong. Just when the ball was about to hit Chi-Chi, Chi-Chi's right hand suddenly swung out from under her armpit, as if it was a conditioned reflex. Everyone imagined that the ball had smashed into the little fat boy's left eye socket with a bang sound. One punch KO. I created a book friend group and pinned it at the top of the book review section. There have been book friends who requested this for a long time, but I never had the time. If you're interested, you can go and take a look. Xiaohan can't guarantee that he will appear often. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.